Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 63. Looking down from the VIP room, Wu Yan instantly had a sense of how it feels to be the elite, the one at the top. TL, part of a poem by Du Fu or Mountain Gazing, describing how the poet felt after climbing up the mountain and feeling like the biggest bada.s around town after overcoming the hardship of climbing, how small the surrounding mountain ridges looked like in comparison to him standing at the top, basically how posh it feels to be at the top. Those noisy casuals coming to join the auction as well, among them except for those like Wu Yan and company who had VIP access as well, they all had to sit down there and see them he could from the top, in his room. Ignoring what he's thinking at the moment, Hinajiku and Mikoto is having a blast discussing whatever the H.E.L.L girls do at this moment. What one could see is that they would reach out their pretty little hand towards the fruit on the table. Yap. This room is no more than a slightly fancier VIP room of a KTV box, what's missing is a microphone in their hands. Lyran on the other hand looks similar to Wu Yan in that she's taking in the view as well. What's different is that he is tilting his head while she's plastering her face all over the mirror with her face squashed against the mirror. Bitterly laughing he turned away from the girls lest he lose control and throw tsukumis at them. If he did that then he will have a nice taste of refreshing lightning bolts, not like he's afraid of them anymore though. He quickly noticed that there's a white little gadget sitting on top the table. He fiddled with it before giggling at the sheer oddity of such a remote control-esque brick thing. What looked like idling to bystander is actually a facade put on by the two. They were actually very wary of Wu Yan for reasons. Is there something weird about this blackboard duster-like thing? The two can't help but ask when they saw him playing around with the thing in his hand while giggling. Well. Lifting the thing he continued. Ma, it's nothing, just a bit curious, is all. Curious? After taking a glimpse of the gadget they still could not figure out what's so odd about the thing in his hand. Perhaps frustrated with not being in the know, the two girls and especially Mikoto pouted while giving him a cold humph. Don't beat around the bushes, will ya? If you have something to say, say it straight. Are you a man or not? Her doughty words made his hand jerk and he was that close to hitting Lyran, who stuck her face very close out of intrigue. Twitching his lips, he looked at her very unamused. He feels like flipping tables. If you're that suspicious, why don't you come check out my manhood, using yourself as the price? But, of course he could only silently bury his retort. Even if one were to give him more guts he wouldn't dare to say it. How could he forget to serve the two impatient princesses? Glancing over at the similarly dissatisfied Hinajiku he felt powerless. It's futile to act all mysterious in front of these two tsundere girls. This item should be the auction paddle used to bid. He ditched the idea of playing games with them. Bidding crystal pad? I could more or less guess how its usage from the name. Railgun, who told Wu Yan off for beating around the bush, is now grinning at them, like she's so deep. This made him bleed so hard inside. Hinajiku shook her head as she inspected the bidding crystal pad and muttering after a bit. Surely, like its name, it's easy to guess, this should be what's used for bidding during the auction, isn't it? Yap. He retrieved the gadget and then waved it while explaining. If you see anything you like and want to place a bid on it, then just say your price at the thing. The host will receive it without a doubt. I don't know what the exact meaning of this receive is, but according to them it works like that. The two girls nodded before noticing something off. Aren't you joining the auction for the first time as well? Why are you so informed? He answered without a word as he pointed at the manual on one side. T.I.Tred auction for dummies. No words need to be said either, he just grinned at them. TL, poser used impeccable memory on that S.H.I.T. This time the two girls plus Lyran ed. After a brief period of messing around, the auction hall's lights changed in pattern, drawing the attention of all present. An old person dressed in a smart fashion appeared at the table in the centermost stone platform. The dude stroked his not too long beard while guffawing. Against the many onlookers' gazes he responded with a composure without the slightest hint of discomfort or nervousness. Clearly, he has done this many a times before. Surveying the audience, his smile beamed even wider. Ahoa.r.s.e but not bad voice resounded from his old lips. It might look like he's speaking softly, but his sound could be heard no matter where one is seated. Well, this is to be expected. Without something of this level, how could he be able to handle those unruly customers? In addition, this auction is held in one of the few supply towns closest to the giant beast forest. How can it be a simple monotonous auction? At the very least, in the trio's eyes the old man had a level 65 as a testament to his tier 7 strength. Ladies and gentlemen, old and young, we meet again. I have the honor of hosting this auction yet again. Let me say this beforehand, there's a lot of good merchandise in the lineup, and wait till you see the items we have stored away just for this special occasion. Basically, everybody sit tight and enjoy the show. Observing the audience riled up by him, the old man had a very weird flash going inside his eye as he lifted the corner of his lips. All right, without further ado, let's get the first item sold. Picking up the wooden gavel, at the same instance, the crystal ball on the table lighted up with a radiant array of light before coalescing into a projection. The item looked like some sort of apple. The veterans aren't really impressed, but the newcomers sure are. One could hear faint cheering going on. H.E.L.L, Lyran's obeying a blast inside the VIP room. Item number 1, it's this. Surging Power Fruit. Those who knows this fruit surely know its effect, that is the ability to give a tremendous boost of power for a short frame of time. First-time users will experience a boost in present chi and mana. This is a very precious medicine indeed, it might just save one's life in a crisis. He knocked the gavel twice to silence the audience before lightly beginning the bidding, as he did many times before now. Starting bid at 1,000 gold. No upper limits. Begin. Just as he said that, contrary to his expectation, there's no shouting of prices and breaking of previous highest price record. Rather, the whole place is silent except for small discussion sounds here and there and the bidding of price through the bidding crystal pad. Under the projection of said item there's a row of numbers. According to the manual, this row of number has crystal pad ID number at the front and bidding price at the latter part. By the way, his ID number is 007. Yes, the feeling's mutual, he's itching to throw Tsukumai at the ID number. As time flowed along, the projection and number changed as well, following the gavel knocking sounds. One by one the items are sold off. Among the items were medicine like the Surging Force Fruit, weapons, armors, herbs, high-grade monster loot, gems, minerals, rare oddities. One by one the item dazzled the Wu Yan and company. Some of the items were even able to tempt Wu Yan, who had system. Chapter 64. The auction has been going on for more than 1 hour now. Within this period a lot of items have been sold off, at least they're not keeping track. What they do know is that the cheap stuff went for a few thousand gold at least, and the expensive ones went for a few tens of thousands. What is odd is that the mood hasn't reduced along with the number of items, rather it seems to be inversely proportional. The atmosphere is even higher than before. The good stuff are left towards the end, so it is reasonable to expect this kind of result. Right now the projection is showing some kind of demonic beast's part. Its price is now at 30,000 gold and it's still going higher and higher. It's just your average item and it has garnered this kind of price. What's to say of the 3 super secret item that they are about to reveal this time? Wu Yan didn't know, and he certainly wanted this trend to continue. Why? Because that would mean his Kusanagi sword would go even higher. The whole time he has done nothing like bidding for item, but he's grinning like he's enjoying some capital gain. The bidding pad, which had a ridiculously amusing ID number, TL 007, shaken not stirred, is currently residing within Lyran's hand. She kept looking at the projection and muttering something to the pad. She seemed to be having a blast of her time. What could she be doing other than bidding? What? A little lowly bidding for items. Of course he's not mad enough to let her do something like that, she's just playing is all. That's right, this is a game to her. He's not stopping her from playing. In fact he had a very dirty smirk. Hinajuku and Mikoto didn't look like they were gonna stop her either, but their smile when seeing him and Lyran were a bit forced, that's for sure. They weren't stopping the little girl because she's very shrewd, one wouldn't expect a kid to be this good. At first the two girls were a bit averse to the idea of her playing with the crystal pad, who knows if she might overbid on some trashy item. They wouldn't have a place to complain even if they wanted to cry. But soon they changed their minds. The girl really is just playing around. She raised the bid slowly and surely until when she sees that there's only a few ID number that keeps appearing, this is her sign to stop playing. This signals that the item is about to be auctioned away. This cunning little las.s, she made some ordinary item sell above premium. The two girls don't know what to say at this. Should they weep for the poor f.u.c.ks or laugh at them? Oh, if only those bidding for it know, if only they know that the reason they had to spend a bit more is because little ol Lyran here is fooling around, those people would surely kick down his VIP room's door. 35000 going once. Going twice? Going thrice? Sold to the client ID 199. A claw of verdant wing eagle. The gavel resounded announcing the successful auction of said item and its projection disappeared. The old auctioneer didn't look like he's tired from selling some few hundred items, his mouth didn't stop for 1 hour plus and still there is no sign of thirst. With dragon's vitality and tiger energy he continued. The projection from the crystal ball now showed a pure white crystal. Next item, a pure white crystal. He pointed at the projection with his wrinkly hands while donning a cryptic smile. Seeing that the audience is baffled, he knocked the gavel before continuing. Perhaps a lot of people don't know what this is, candidly speaking we too do not know what this is. With that line the mystified audience were taken aback. As if ignoring this sudden change in attitude he continued once more. Not even the most senior and knowledgeable appraiser can identify what this is. The f.u.c.k? If you don't know what it is, why are you even auctioning it? The audience started to stir. There's startled ones, frowning ones, vexed ones, even contempt mixed in. The old dude is not perturbed whatsoever, he kept his smile like he's damn sure this item can be auctioned off, no sweat. He clapped his hands and the crowd quieted down without much more motion. The old man's got a few trick up his sleeve, everyone's waiting for him. He beamed before explaining to the crowd. We are not trying to pull a fast one here, it is a truth that we don't what this thing is, however it's a pure white crystal that has quite a background. If not for the fact that we really couldn't determine what this is, we wouldn't have brought it out to auction off. Beating around the bush, the old man has the attention of everyone present, and that includes Wu Yan and company. The old man caressed his beard before pointing out. This crystal is not an item consigned to us but an item we brought out from our firm's own inventory. He stopped dramatically before continuing. Our agents found a dying Tier 9 warrior under a very miraculous situation. When the words Tier 9 warrior came out, everyone there were startled except for a few sharp ones who knew exactly what his intention is. Yes. This crystal is an item that we retrieved from the dead Tier 9. Odd. Once more the crowd started become riled up again. A portion of the audience gazed greedily at the projection. In an age where the G.O.ds have fallen and there's only 5 demi-G.O.ds, how many Tier 9s could there be? N.O.body knows for sure, but everyone's pretty sure about one thing, this thing is a possession of a Tier 9 super. Could it really be that simple a thing? Of course not. Furthermore, going by what the old dude said, this crystal is something that a Tier 9 held onto even in the moment of his death. Adding that to the fact that the master appraisers can't identify what this is, this thing has suddenly become that much more alluring in a mysterious way. N.O.body is doubting the firm, they aren't suspicious of them for artificially hyping the price up by misinformation. There's a credibility to an auction firm that has managed to grow this kind of scale within a critical supply town. At the scene, close to 1,000 people raised their crystal pad to prepare for bidding. Their intentions were clear. In the upper part of this place where the VIP reside unseen in their room, one could also see they're preparing to bid as well. The old dude lifted the corner of his lip, all according to plan. Meanwhile, Wu Yan and company, Hinajiku and Mikoto, are raising their brows at the projection as if they're trying to identify it. Lyran excitedly lifted her crystal pad as well, preparing to screw the bidders over. Wu Yan on the other hand flinched when the item appeared and soon thereafter began to express his delight. Beep. The item within user field of vision contains a significant amount of life energy. Strongly recommend securing the item. Chapter 65. Beep. Item within field of vision contains significant amount of life energy. Recommending prompt procurement of said item. With such a cold, lifeless voice reverberating in his ear, he became just as emotional as the hyped crowd down there. What's life energy? He has only seen two kinds of instances where this energy is found. Specifically speaking, the system has only identified them in two such kinds of object. The first would be the hard-earned mysterious crystal after completing the mission in Hayate the Combat Butler. There's a monster sealed within and hence the life energy. The other type would be the monster eggs he Lupin the Third out of in monster nests. Again, the life energy is coming off of the life within those eggs. What is the nature of life energy? This he doesn't know. What's their function? He doesn't have the slightest clue either. What he does know, however, is that these stuff have one purpose under system. Summoning points, Baba, summoning points. DAM.N straight, summoning points. The points used to summon Xiaojos. He still recalls that the system said as long as the unit has life energy and no sentience, to speak of, then they can all be used for summoning points. This is one of the reason he went around a lot of nest, wolf nest, dog nest, any nest really. He wouldn't let any go for the sake of eggs, for the sake of summoning points. Plants do have life energy and no sentience, so technically they could be sold. However, the thing is their life energy is 2 DAM.N small, so Lo Wu Yan don't know how to begin describing them, and so it wouldn't be feasible to sell them. Otherwise the giant beast forest might just be giant beast forest in name only, for all the trees would be cut down. Other than the demonic beast eggs and mysterious crystal, he has never seen another item with energy unit material enough for economic decisions. Now, a pure white crystal that has triggered the system into motion. Of course he's elated. He recalls last time the system didn't even mention significant life force energy when describing the mysterious crystal. One could imply that this pure white crystal contains pure life energy and no sentience whatsoever to speak of then if one were to sell it. That's AF.U.C.K ton of amount. In his mind, summoning points equals Xiaojos. If he didn't get this item, then he might as well be struck down by lightning. Holding back his saliva, he turned to Lyran at his side. Little girl, hand over the crystal pad. His sudden change in attitude startled the three girls. They were puzzled at his behavior. They could feel a bit of panic in his tone. Is there something wrong? Could they be monsters inside the crystal or something? Hinajiku tilted her head. He's not fazed when the previous items flashed by. Why the sudden change? He has not seen him so triggered before. Lyran said over the pad like an obedient little girl. As he received the pad, he observed the numbers that were starting to change under the projection. Yep, the crystal has been identified as containing a significant amount of life energy. Life energy. Hinajiku and Mikoto exchanged sights for a moment. Only little ol Lyran on the side kept mumbling, what system, what's life energy? Among the various information imbued into them at summoning is basic knowledge regarding summoning and by extension the requirements, conditions, and of course the summoning points. The two instantly knew why he's so agitated. That crystal can be sold for points, is it? Mikoto walked over to the GLA.S.S window and observed the pure white crystal's projection above the crystal ball. I'm not sure. He never took his eyes off the white crystal as he said so. Keeping count of the bids, he continued with composure. If that crystal is similar in nature to mysterious crystal in that it has some life form sealed away or living inside, then it would be impossible to sell. Well, that's true. She nodded in understanding, but when she turned back to look at Hinagiku, the two exchanged look, and in it were resonating emotion. Namely, displeasure. The two were surprised. Why this feeling? They didn't know why, but for some reason they started becoming upset. It feels like something important to them is about to be taken away. How would the girls know what the douchebag is thinking inside, specifically his train of logic that went summoning points rightward arrow shoujos. Hence more summoning points rightward arrow more shoujos. Genius. If Wu Yan is an empathy and could feel this turmoil inside the girls, he would surely be sweating in his boot. No. Sweat a lake. DAM.N, Women's Intuition, you scary. After listening to the background, at least 70% of the audience are interested, and is currently predict.I.P. aiding in the bidding, the rest are, ER. Let's say, they don't fulfill the ability part of demand in economics, they could only swallow their shame and frustration. Evidently this group of people who are unable to predict.I.P. 8 increased as the number of people increased. It didn't take long before this 30% grew to 40%, 50%, 60%, 70%, and on it goes. He's not disqualified yet, he still has that mountain of 200,000 gold. It reached a point where the predict.I.P. ants are limited to those within VIP rooms. And within these rooms are those of a wealthy background, at least they're far better off in comparison to the noobs below. Just by selling his mainstream armament is not enough a criteria for the sharply dressed man from the firm before to issue him a VIP card. The F.U.C.K ton of gold also played a role. The predict.I.P. aiding ones, though limited to VIP room tenants, are probably unidentifiable to the Ma.S.SES below because of the ID number. One wouldn't know the name behind the ID numbers, so this place is still quite a reputable place, so one wouldn't need to worry about getting nailed because of a jade ring. TL, getting robbed because of one's wealth, talent, anything that people gets gelatinous over. Yet the number keeps ticking up. Observing the upward trend, the old dude's smile also had the upward trend of turning into a chrysanthemum. When the price hit 70,000, the ticking frequency started slowing down. Perceptive of this, the old dude picked up his gavel. 70,000 gold. Anyone else wants to keep the party going? Remember, this is what a tier 9 died to keep safe, it has to be worth something, yes. Oh. 80,000 gold by 007. This is too expensive, isn't it? Hinagiku interjected when he put up the bid. 80,000 gold? What's that in JPY? The coins are pure gold. TL, A.S. Summing each coin is 24K, 10 grams in weight, and then multiplying it by 80,000, we have 3,355,320,000 yen, and that's 297,502,46.76 USD, mother of God. He didn't care, is money more important than shoujos? Seeing that the number turned to 85,000, he bid 90,000. At this point the bidders bowed out and decreased in number. Tier 9 belonging as it is, they don't know what's the use of such an item. If the master appraiser can't identify, what hope do they have of achieving the same? And so 100,000 going thrice. Sold to 007, an enigmatic pure white crystal. Chapter 66. When the gavel struck down 3 times, Wu Yan's heart finally calmed down. His mountain of gold became half its size, but he's not remorseful at all. Even if it's just 1000 summoning points, it's totally worth it. Moreover, he didn't believe that the system would troll him by using significant and only yielding 1000 points. He didn't know the extent of significant, but he prayed that it would be as much as possible, the more the merrier. No, really he could summon more, so it's merrier, you see. He has already decided who's next on the Xiaojous to summon list. Amusing himself at the sight of Hinajiku and Mikoto clumsily handling Lyran's bombard of questions like what's system, what's life energy, what's summoning points, the slick dodged aside with much schadenfreude. This item is but a mere appetizer compared to the show that's about to come. He didn't give a damn whether the tier 9 died on his own or met demise at the auction firm's hand. It matters not because the item has been obtained. The audience also didn't give much more attention towards the thing. In the end, this item is only a tier 9's belonging. If N.O. body could use it, then it's just another junk. The auction firm didn't have the confidence, they didn't as well. In conclusion, the tier 9 belonging affair has been thrown back to the recess of their minds. Wu Yan? He couldn't care less what the true use of the crystal is, all pale in comparison to the hallowed summoning points. What's more, with a system like this excluding a kid, is there really anything it didn't have? Well, if you could procreate with the summons, you wouldn't really need to buy one from the system anyway. The fate of this crystal has been sealed the moment Wu Yan established his ownership over the thing. After these, the old auctioneer did his job and sold off a few more articles. Each and every one of them is a fine piece of item. In fact, there are some that sold for an even higher price than the crystal. It's an understatement to say he didn't care about the items. He threw the crystal pad back to Lyran for her to please herself with the bidding game. After some unknown period of time, the lights changed again. If one were to say the lights before the auction began were relaxing, then the lights after the commencement of auction were a prelude to a musical march. The lights now gives off the feeling of a climax. It certainly feels that way. When this dazzling array of light show appeared, the old auctioneer over at the center of the platform straightened his back. He even changed his tone from a relaxed one to a more stern one. Glancing over the audience, he raised his arms in a dramatic way before shouting out loud. Finally! It's the time. All the best items we saved for last are about to be revealed. This round of auction contains 3 articles, and each of them could be said to be very precious, the extent of which is noticeably higher quality than the ones before these. The higher priced ones sold for more than 100,000 before, but at such a price it's still enough to join the big league here. The big leagues here are way more precious. Perhaps it's the old dude's serious tone. The audience all felt very tense, their hearts started increasing in pace. The crystal ball projection expanded a few times larger. One by one rows of scrolls appeared in the projection, taking up an approximate 3/4 of the image. It made it look grand. On the scrolls were inscribed scalding gold letters, gale-rending slashing method. This is a high-tier battle skill. Its name is as you see. It's a skill created by a tier 7, its effect is stupendously great. If one were to perfect this technique, then within the same tier one could climb to the top of that tier. Even if it's against a foe of a higher tier, one might also be able to harm the foe. The audience all stared wide-eyed, with their body lurching forward as if they could reduce their distance with the item this way. Heavy breathing ensued. High-tier battle skill. Strongest within the same tier. Tier override. These magic words had a special place in the hearts of many present. Heck, some of the audience began to shout, "Yo, what's the hold up, let's bid." Sitting high up in the VIP room, he issued a apathetic laugh against the auctioneer's statement. He's not even hiding his derision. A high-tier battle skill is pretty nice, but high-tier also means it's hard to train. The battle skill needs at least tier 5 to properly cultivate in it. Strongest within the tier? More like overstatement on steroids. You have a high-tier skill? Well, funny, the other guy has one as well. Everybody has one. Can it fight with the big A.S.S families? Which one of the disciple/daughter/son/relative/Zwaberg in them big A.S.S families don't have 1 or 2 high-tier battle skills? Shaw. It's nothing but a mere tier 7 battle skill. Suppose one were to cultivate it to perfection, magnific and fabulous pre-tier 7. When one comes to tier 7 and still relies on this sappy thing, then the guy will surely get his A.S.S handed to him. This is all in the context of one being Wu Yan, though his situation might not be an accurate representation of other people's situation. Each one of his abilities are obtained from the system. And these abilities are practically crammed inside his head with perfect learning. To him, cultivating in battle skills and whatnot is totally inefficient, a way to increase one's strength. The dude is insensitive to the plight of other who doesn't enjoy the same privileges. They can't learn something instantly, never mind high-tier battle skills. Even low-tier ones have to be picked up through deliberate practice. Now that there's a chance to learn one naturally, they wouldn't give up pursuing it. Just like an exquisite item, it has been tagged with the price also soared into 100,000 gold. They looked on SA, the price soared through 100,000, and then 200,000, it's still going up. The three looked at each other in dismay. Finally, the battle skill that might as well been another bowl of rice to Wu Yan got sold off at a consideration of 350,000 gold. When the old dude said sold, many among the audience sighed, sighing at the fact that this G.O. daily skill just isn't meant for them. Wu Yan, on the other hand, can't help restraining his smile. Wiping the invisible sweat on his forehead, the old dude raised his arms once more to calm the audience down. Everyone, please don't get upset, the next item absolutely won't disappoint. When the audience heard this, they sat their A.S.S straight and tight while throwing their gaze over at the old dude. A chill went up his old spine as his chrysanthemum, TL, Chinese euphemism for A.N.U.S, clenched up. The projection changed and a slim katana without a guard appeared in everyone's field of vision. On its side laid its sheath. It may be a projection, but that sword shine is so sharp and so alive that everyone who looked at it could just feel it. When the weapon appeared, the old dude became a bit excited, like the sword is his possession. Everybody, the next article is the second last item of this round's auction. Here it is. The audience looked at the eccentric design of the weapon and cast their doubtful sight on the old dude. Sure, it looks all sharp and all, but the ones who could appreciate its abilities were few in numbers. As real as it looks, it's only a projection and not the real thing. Surely it can't be that easy for the layman to judge it. The auctioneer guffawed before throwing out a line that got them riled up yet again. Its slim appearance be deceiving, its design be intriguing. This, my friends, is a mainstream armament. Chapter 67. Mainstream armament. The excitable audience P.I.S. said their pants when they heard this, quite contrary to their previous dejected look. Armaments enjoy more prestige than battle skills in Silveria amongst the many magicians and warrior for a very simple reason. In a world where might makes right, it's natural to seek out more power for various self-interest reasons. Battle skills and armaments are two main ways to do so. The biggest difference between the two is that one needs to have certain aptitudes taught Ryan in battle skill. If one has the genes qua, then it might not take long, but if the guy is a trash, then no matter how hard he trains, it wouldn't do much good. But if it's armament, it didn't matter if you're cat, a dog, a little soldier, or some N.O.bli. Trashy attribute BDAM.ned, if you can swing it, then voila, power increased. This is the reason why Kusanagi sword appeared after the battle method. This one is more popular, and as a result it's the second last item to come out. Despite being the second last, does one really question the quality of such an item? Wu Yan and company are flabbergasted at the sheer speed of price change on the crystal ball projection. Their mind couldn't deal with it and soon they tuned out. It didn't take long before Kusanagi sword fetched a price beyond the previous high-tier battle skill, i.e. 350,000 gold. He subconsciously rubbed his eyes just to make sure he's seeing right. He pointed at the figure on the projection while trying to confirm it with those around him. Hey! Hinajiku, Mikoto, that's 350,000 gold, is it not? Hinajiku's not surprised at the insecure inflection in his words. She's not that much different from him after all. You're not mistaken. No, you're mistaken, That's not 350,000, that's 400,000. The H.E.L.L, when did it got to that level? How's that possible? He did a chin rub as he pondered with much distress. It's not the first time a mainstream armament is auctioned here, and from past records the upper limit is around 350,000. Why would it come to this kind of price this early in the auctioning? Beats me. Came too tender and lovely voice, which added to his vexation. Ma, just let it be, it's a good thing anyway, isn't it? She shook her head in frustration. Her brown tea-colored hair danced about, signaling her inability to delve into this complicated issue. That's right, it's a good thing if this continues. He didn't bother with the question anymore and just watched the numbers as they continued on their uptick before grinning. This F.U.C.K ton of gold, if I were to bring it to my world, moi can surely otaku my way to kingdom come. TL, over 1 billion USD. What the three probably didn't guess in their conjectures on why the abnormal premium is that this uptick is due to a furious bid war between ladies. Given any sample, it is conceivable that even if this world is divided into cultivating dochi and magic, there's certainly females as well. To train in magic one would need abnormal talents. In Silveria, the ratio of magicians to warriors is a complete and utter disparity, with numbers in favor of warriors. There's dudes and chicks in the magician stream, and surely there's dude and chick in the warrior side as well. Given a warrior path might be prejudiced against a female, TL, fundamental physical difference between man and female. Think how males can develop more muscle than a female can. It is true as well that N.O. body can guarantee a girl would have talent to become a magician. Thus, female warrior might be lesser number in comparison to male counterpart, but there quite a number of them. And here's the deal, warriors know. Their arms of preference are normally spears, swords, pole arms, etc. Yeah? Each one of this weapon tend to be made for the bigger niche of the market, namely males, and thus masculine in design, look, and impact. Let's narrow the focus down to sword and the likes. This world is different from Wu Yan's. In Silveria each of the sword type weapons are mostly arming swords and the likes. Although these weapons that could match their height could be swung around easy with dochi, and the is pretty high as well, ultimately however, it's not aligned with their aesthetics. Some might disagree, but they're in a minority. Then came Kusanagi sword, the game changer. It looks slim, agile and light without any gold or gemstone embellishment. Relative to the broadswords, this kind of weapon is more practical and certainly more popular with the ladies. And thus, nigh every woman here has their hearts taken captive by Kusanagi sword. It would make sense that the price shot up in such a manner. If you tell him this, he would not fry his brain matter over why the price acted so out of nature. He understand it to be a principle worth standing by. Don't guess what she's thinking. Even if you did, it's futile. One wouldn't know how he might during the entire process, but at last the Kusanagi sword is sold for 500,000 gold. Whew! I'm rich. Like a tacky duded, he exclaimed. The two girls presented him the white of their eyes. Only little Ol Lyran giggled. The auctioneer let down the gavel with a bit of glee to his strike. Maybe he's excited, but Wu Yan feels like the old dude knocked the hammer with too much excitement. Alright everyone, today's auction is nearing its end. Let's take a look at the last article. Everyone grasped their crystal pad while keeping their sights on the crystal ball projection, waiting for the appearance of the last item. A high-tier battle skill and a mainstream armament. What's the last item that tops the two? When the old dude mentioned last article, a fishy light went through his eyes, even his tone changed somewhat. N.O. body picked it up though, that includes Wu Yan, who's still stuck in his gold mountain fantasy. With a wave of the hand the projection changed. What appeared before them is a map. Map. Almost every one of the audience can't help blurting out that word. What accompanied soon after is puzzlement. Wu Yan and company is also perplexed. He raised his brows and squinted at the map. His gut is telling him something's not right. This is the last item. This is supposed to be more precious than the battle skill and the armament. A mere map. That can't be right. Why sell this if this is a treasure map? Why didn't the firm go and dig out the treasure themselves? Certainly, perhaps for some odd reason the firm can't muster the resources to do the prospecting themselves, and so they resort to auctioning off might be plausible. He's not considering this as a possible though. Even the other audience members probably wouldn't. If they did, they should go and sign up for learning challenged welfare money. Who in their right and sane mind would blatantly display the whole DAM.N map? Everything's out in the clear. At this point those with monstrous memory has probably recorded it down. Isn't this just asking everyone to remember this? What's the point of auctioning off something N.O.Body wants? Just memorize the whole DAM.N thing. Is the firm mad? That can't be as well. If the firm is R.E.T.A.R.D.E.D, it would have been out of business for operating with such poor efficacy. Now if this isn't fishy as H.E.L.L, then what is? When a person that's so otaku he can't think straight would notice something like this, surely the near 1000 auction predict.I.P.ants wouldn't all be dumba.s.ses. Most likely them smart Alex are having the blast of their time figuring out this issue. Chapter 68. Maybe everyone is a bit perplexed over why the last item is a map and why are we showing it so blatantly. Seeing that a great many nodded to his question, he ignored the small minority that had their suspicion and those that have their brows raised before continuing. Please let me explain and you will see. The old dude touched the crystal ball on the table and it shot out a ray of light magnifying the map projection to a bigger proportion, as if he's not afraid everybody can see it. The auctioneer walked to the front of his station and announced to the Ma.S.S. Firstly, to make something clear, this map, though being the last item, is not an article to be auctioned away. The audience began whispering when they heard him. The shred few however had their brows raised even higher. Shaking his head lightly, he didn't try to stop the minor communications happening around him. Don't be alarmed, let me tell you what this map can do. Putting his hand behind his back, the auctioneer went into a tranquil state while emitting an air around him. The air of a super. It is at this moment that the audience recalled, this old fogey is a tier 7. When the old dude opened his mouth, his voice rang out right beside everyone's ears as if he's whispering right beside you. Perhaps some of you might have guessed what the nature of the map is. Indeed, this map is a treasure map. Not giving the audience any chance to react, he continued with a low tone. Everyone must be wondering why an auction firm would take out something like a treasure map to share with everyone. Well, we have no choice, you see. Everyone present were listening intently. N.O.Body dared to fart. In that place one could only hear the old dude's voice. When the tier 7 said no choice, even a dumba.s.s would know that the situation is more than it seems. An as.h.i.t storm is brewing. Old dude sighed before explaining. You all recall the pure white crystal's origin. When the old dude mentioned the crystal with significant amount of life energy, Wu Yan and company changed from curious to attentive, except for Lyran. The trio gave the guy undivided attention. It's an article retrieved by our firm from a dying tier 9, this much everyone surely knows. The thing is that white crystal isn't the only item we got from the dying tier 9, this map as well came from the deceased person. Another item recovered from a tier 9. His words did not to quell the suspicion in the audience, quite the contrary, it fueled it even more. This is the main reason we decided to make the map known to public. At this point a hint of annoyance and malice flashed in his eyes, but it was quickly tucked away again. It is true we tried searching for the whereabouts of the treasure. It is also true that an adventure party was sent out by the firm. Equally true is the fact that none of them came back. Everyone gasped at his words. Quite clearly the whole place is shocked at this revelation. Observing the effects of his oratory and seeing that some is still doubtful of him, he bitterly laughed. Everyone please lower your guards, this matter could be asked from any family of a big enough background, it is all true, we are not misstating anything. He paused before continuing. After that round, our firm sent more parties, but without fail none of them would return. That's why we had a conjecture. That maybe the tier 9 went to find the treasure and upon discovering it was met with an ant.I.tie that could slaughter the party we sent and could bring such a grave harm to the tier 9 that upon return, the individual died. At that moment sounds of saliva being gulped could be heard all over the auction hall. G.O.D, that's a tier 9, an existence of the level that could be counted amongst the top fighting force of Silveria. Thinking of the implications, many emotions surfaced in the crowd. There's greed, fear, admiration, they were all unstable and some were beaming while some were gloomy. The old dude took in their reaction and after feeling that the crowd has settled a bit continued. Basically, we cannot do this by the firm's resources alone. That's a bold statement, rather than beyond their resource, given that a tier 9 died while searching for the treasures. The map could be described as highly dangerous and should be treated in such a manner with terror. And then the old dude laughed, his laughter lightened the heavy atmosphere. And so, here's what we plan to do. In 3 days' time the firm would gather a big group of people to once again dive into said location on the treasure map, but we can't muster up enough people alone, so here we are, inviting anyone who dares to step up to the challenge to accompany us on this adventure. In 3 days' time, gather at the Souther Plaza of this supply town, we shall head there together and enjoy the boon. The Ma.S.S. finally realized the intent of this long speech. It's a speech to gather up more supers and try to solve the problem by numbers, and get to the treasures. The old dude waved his hand and bowed to the audience. Everyone is welcome to further propagate this news. It will be easier for us if more competent individuals join us in this venture. No strings attached, anyone who could fight is welcomed. The more people there are, the better our chances of getting the treasure. Done with his gesture, he clapped his hand. Well then, that concludes this round of auction. These 3 days, the firm will be organizing its own party and as such will not be operational during this period. We deeply apologize for any inconvenience this would cause. The old dude retreated away. The audience also slowly dispersed with different thoughts in their mind. What to say, good luck or bad luck? To think one would encounter this kind of affair this early after predict.I.P.aiding in another world's auction. Or is it perhaps just his karma after doing so much good deeds? Slapping his cheek, he loosened his shoulder. It feels like the fatigue is coming all at once. Yan, this doesn't feel right. Mikoto came to his side while whispering in his ear. Acting in this manner, it looked like she's afraid someone would hear her. The whole scene looked so tsukumayable. Her breath hitting his face and ear tickled his ear, and it certainly also tickled his heart. Glancing at her exquisite face that's just mere centimeters away, he really wanted to give her a peck on the cheek. Yan, did you notice anything? Another voice came at his other ear, again with the hot alluring breath hitting him. His cyanide heart instantly died down. Turning over, he saw Hinagiko standing at the other side lightly muttering into his ear. He felt saved by the bell. Good G.O.D, if she didn't stop him he really might have gave her a kiss. He didn't know what Railgun would do, but Hinagiko would surely draw her Shiro Sakura and girls. They didn't notice the irregularity of his throat movement. Putting on a poker face, he tried acting like he's powerless at something. Body would hear anything even if you didn't come so close to me. The two flinched before they noticed the nigh zero distance between their face. Blushing red, they jumped away at a distance before lowering their head. He felt a bit lonely and at a loss when the two aroma disappeared from his sides. The two exchanged glance before taking a synchronous look at him and then quickly diverting their gaze. When they saw Lyran looking at them with puzzled eyes, they dryly laughed it off. G.O.D, I can't wait for the next summon. Chapter 69. Hinagiko retreated to Mikoto's side and quickly tried to calm down her fluid U.S.Tiered appearance before putting up a serious front. Yan, don't you think the last item was a bit strange? He nodded and paced around the wide VIP room. As he walked, he mused out loud. It would be hard not to feel something off. As long as an individual has some sense to their mind, one would feel perturbed, right? Mikoto sighed while pulling at her hair. Would it be more accurate to say we're lucky, or just unlucky? It's the first auction we've been to and now this kind of thing happens. Well, I kinda already said it, so Railgun, please, don't take a jab at it again. Lyran is held by her hand, standing beside Hinajika. She stayed docile. She's a bit of a brat sometimes with that little brain of hers. She might not be able to follow or comprehend what's going on, but she understands that big brother and big sisters are discussing crucial matters and therefore she should strive not to disturb them. TLHNNNGGG. She rubbed her golden hair before pointing out. It feels like the matter is not as simple as the old Gramps make it out to be. That old Gramps in this case would refer to the Tier 7 auctioneer. There is certainly omissions, and there's multiple inconsistency in his words. Clenching her fist, this unfeminine behavior exhibited a certain natural charm when Mikoto did this. He really wanted to Tsukumae that Railgun is the embodiment of violence. TL, as with any tsundere naturally. Inconsistencies. Hinajika looked at Mikoto with shiny eyes, those eyes basically told tales of the master's curiosity. She nodded sternly before stretching out her slender hand and sticking out 3 fingers, the meaning of which is self-explanatory. 3 inconsistencies. Wu Yan lowered his head and started piecing the puzzle. Noticing that all eyes is on her, Mikoto stuck out her chest proudly. There's nothing awfully noticeable though, she didn't have A.S. sets there, what with being A and all. Hinajika took out a more serious expression before nodding. Let's ignore the smaller details first. Firstly, why did the firm really reveal the map? Hinajika blinked in startlement. Isn't that because the old Gramps said something about inviting all the capable supers? Is there really a need for that? She cut her off bluntly, for very good reason as well. He nodded before giving his view. It's as she said, there really is no need for the reveal. If they wanted strong people to come along, then they could just as well had monopolized the map and making their intentions known. Surely there would have been people coming along as well, so what's the aim of revealing it? Hinajika started doubting when she heard this. Poking her cheeks with her finger, she continued. It seems like that really is a redundant move. Aren't the firm afraid of other parties going ahead without them? And that's the first inconsistency. She then lifted 2 fingers. 2nd point, on what basis does the firm think they can handle a party that is equal or greater to a Tier 9? Think about it, a Tier 9 basically died trying to get to the treasure. Once they made this news public, can they really handle the sheer amount of parties coming along? Realizing the implications, Hinajika elaborated on her behalf. That makes sense, a Tier 9 would risk his life going in there for the bounty. That's sure to attract a lot of supers, at least Tier 7. No, even Tier 8. Or quite possibly. If you're going to say Tier 9, I can say with reasonable certainty that they won't appear. It wasn't Mikoto that cut her off this time but Wu Yan. It's just a random gossip from an auction firm, without absolute assurance of its certainty. Would a Tier 9 mobilize? Mikoto concurred. He's right, not at least before some fodders go in to test the water first. The Tier 9 probably won't make an appearance. Ads by Google equals window.ads by Google, push. That means Tier 8 can still mobilize, isn't it? Getting cut off twice, Hinajika's a bit upset now. Isn't this just making her look silly? Ignoring her outburst, there is some truth in her words. In fact, it might very well come true. He ran some scenarios before frowning. Indeed, the chances of a hostile encounter with a Tier 8 is highly plausible. The auction firm isn't made up of R.E.T.A.R.ds. There should also have made some provision for this situation, that's for sure. I mean, if a Tier 8 came and took all the loot for himself, then that would leave the auction firm in a very ridiculous state yet. So then why, even after understanding this, do they still reveal the map? Hinajika suggested something after seeing that Wu Yan and Mikoto are deep in their thought and is a bit troubled over the same question as well. Maybe, the firm has some sort of ace up their sleeves. It could surprise Tier 8, or maybe the firm itself has a Tier 8. Their eyes shone for a moment and he hammered his palm with his hand. That's correct, how can this slip me? Since the auctioneer is a tier 7 there could be stronger existences in the firm as well. That's just a guess. Still a bit unconvinced, Mikoto relaxed her brows slightly. Wu Yan and Hinajiko nodded. So Mikoto, what's the third inconsistency? He lifted his head to look at her, he's puzzled about why Mikoto's dodging his eyes. Is there something you can't quite say? Mikoto. Bewildered at her loss for speech behavior, he pursued her. Her eyes floated away for a moment before looking them in the eyes. Actually, about the third point. I can't think of any at the moment. Wu Yan and Hinajiko fell face first to the ground, they can't muster the energy to get up anymore. A surprised Lyran quickly supported Hinajiko while Mikoto did the same for Wu Yan. The two rolled their eyes at her. Now he's really suspecting maybe it's her Aunt Flo, TL, visiting, that's why she wanted to play a trick on them. Mikoto stuck her palms together while beaming, this looks like she's admitting her fault or something. While they're fooling around, someone knocked on their door, so Wu Yan and company quickly tidied up their appearance. Come in. The door opened and the sharply dressed man from the small firm before came in. The same guy that him the VIP card. The man bowed to them before continuing. Boss, this is a notification to tell you that the armament auction proceeding has been entered into your gold card, TL, for everything else, there's MasterCard. Please confirm the amount. Checking, and voila, the numbers check out, the 200,000 has turned into 575,000. 100,000 for the pure white crystal, Kusanagi sword sold for 500,000 after deducting middleman fee of 5%, cha-ching the amount above. Yep, 575,000 gold. The amount is correct. Thanks for your hard work. Say no more, it is as it should be done. The man beamed at him before taking out a box and presenting it to him. Boss, this is the article you have bid for, I took the liberty of retrieving it for you. He flinched before nodding in elation and receiving it. Once the man made his exit, he quickly opened up the box, there it was, the pure white crystal resting solemnly inside. The thing looked no different than a normal stone, except for its color. There really is nothing otherworldly about it. This is the crystal with the life energy signature. The three girls came to his side to examine the item, they gazed so hard as if that would make a flower grow out of it. Putting it on the table, he took out the crystal and at the same time the system rang. Hearing what the system said, his whole body froze and his eyes, mouth all widened in disbelief. Beep, detecting a significant amount of life force unit, preliminary calculations state that it's worth 200,000 summoning points, exchange for points. Chapter 70. Beep, detecting a significant amount of life force unit, preliminary calculations state that it's worth 200,000 summoning points, exchange for points. If system sounded like a cold heartless B.I.T.C.H before, the voice that rang out 3 times now is no different than that of the beautiful call of nature. The emotionless voice kept repeating itself without the slightest hint of being annoyed, but it still could not return him back to his senses. The way he looks now would be more perfect if his eyes started rolling over and revealing his white, TL, ever seen a broken man's eyes? It's obvious this meat pie made him come to a vacant state, he's lost all advanced cognitive function now. Oh, what's the big deal, it's just 200k you say? Well, ignoring hot chicks for the moment, yes that's what he's after, granted, but still what's more important is that Mikoto cost 70,000 at first, and she's 68 at the time, although she's 69 now, a peak tier 7 at the verge of transcending to tier 8. Now suppose we summon a Xiaozhou with 200,000, what then? What does this 200,000 summoning points girl mean in terms of opness? He already has a candidate for his summon next. She didn't need 200,000, but she needs more than Mikoto, that's for sure. In other words, she Mikoto. TL, in terms of strength of course, but I put it like this because I like her, bite me Kudir's best wafus. Stronger than Mikato, then that means she's a tier 8 at the very least. The original plan he had was something along the lines of going out and do some more mercenary quest and then go A.R.S.ene Lupin on some monster nest to get the required points. Looks like a change in plan is in order because he absolute has the points for her now. 100,000 gold for such an amount of summoning points. Suppose that there's another same crystal up for grabs, he wouldn't even hesitate trading his entire fortune for it. And so, after a while of getting lost in Wuyan land, he regained his executive functions, but not without a sudden sense of excitement and zing. As if he didn't see the judging and befuddled eyes of the three girls close to him, he danced. It is a dance as weird as it irritates audience, the three girls have never seen this kind of grotesque dance. And yet, he danced on. Hinagiku, Mikato, and Lyran exchanged glance, you look at me I look at you, they didn't know what to say at this point. Is this guy alright in the head? 'Twas Hinagiku, pondering over whether it was the correct choice to leave behind her parents and friends for the sake of being together with him. Mikato covered her eyes with her hands. That's right, she can't watch this anymore. So embarrassed.s.sing. It's luck there's no one here to witness this. I would think he has lost his mind from brain development, but sadly this guy got his ability from me, so no such luck. Hee hee. Lyran is grinning at his r.e.t.a.r.ded dance steps. One wouldn't think anything is wrong with her, if not for the fact that she has sweat coming down the side of her head. Perhaps finally feeling that all eyes is on him, not kind to say the least. By the way, his wicked moves stopped slowly under the three pair of gorgeous eyes. Ahem. Harumping, he turned stern, trying to play it off with a beaming face. Now if you will let me explain the logic behind my motor movement a brief while ago, there's a perfectly understandable motive. Nope. We don't understand it at all. Not even thinking, Hinagiku and Mikato shot him down mercilessly. Nice try. If they claimed they understood, then wouldn't that imply that their IQ is on the level of this simplistic life form? He can't retort to that. Still not giving up Toph, he tried excusing himself in a small timid voice. I was a bit too over the moon. I believe if you were in my shoes you would have done the same. Nope. We definitely absolutely wouldn't act like you, brother. Lyran jumped on the bandwagon and threw a TM-38 at him as well. He looked miserable. Not even with that thick face of his that can withstand the attack of a legendary grade armament could he salvage his honor. PFFF, ahaha. The girls laughed at his poor appearance. They can't help it, the fool had it coming. And so their laugh chimed in the air. At this point Wu Yan didn't care anymore, because he knows, the corner of his lips is beyond his control. Okay, that's about enough of laughing at you. Just when he's planning on running out of here in desperation, Hinagiku stopped first and turned stern. It would be much more convincing if she had properly concealed the hint of a mis.e.m.e.nt still lurking behind her eyes. NN, let's get to the real deal, Yan. Rubbing her slightly aching stomach, Mikato's not as kind as Hinagiku, she slid in another round of laughter before stopping. The real deal? Seriously thinking about getting an ability that can cancel out all noise, he flinched when he heard her. He can't quite catch up with her. What real deal? He whispered. Don't tell me you have seriously gone cuckoo. Hinagiku shot a judging look at him while sighing helplessly. Wryly laughing, he quickly recalled some stuff before hesitatingly asking. About the map from before. Hinagiku kept her eyes on him. Her stare is piercing into him and making him feel all anxious. Mikato. She's busy laughing her A.S.S off at his expense. Sighing again, she vexatiously pointed it out. I think you really do have some screws loose now. I already said real deal and you still can't think it through. He awkwardly scratched his cheeks. I think this treasure map. It's not about the treasure map. He almost kneeled his head down for Kaiko-sama. Judging from the trio's laughter, he came close enough. In a doggy position with 4 limbs on the ground. It feels like Kaiko-sama really is taking me for a fool. Slowly rising up again, he shot a glance at her. Who would have thought that even Hinajika would do this to me? It just happened. Hinajika let out an awkward and apologetic chuckle. Fine, great Kaiko-sama, please bestow wisdom upon this lowly one. What do you mean by the real deal? He raised his hand in submission. The sense of defeat is strong in this one. A great otaku like me that has been through every kind of s.h.i. storm and surprise b.u.t.sex, to be nailed twice by 2 girls in a day, and of all girls, it's Kaiko-sama and Railgun. What a disgrace. Of course I'm talking about why you were acting the way you did. Recalling the weird dance, she can't help questioning him in a puzzled tone. What could have made you so, happy? Primed by Kaiko-sama, he suddenly recalled what he was thinking about before this as he lifted the pure white crystal. Hearing the notification sound that repeated itself for the nth time, he can say for sure that all this is real. Licking his lips, he guffawed before continuing. Well, that's because you girls don't know what a bounty this crystal is. Oh yeah, the crystal. Mikoto fiddled with the crystal before turning her head over to Wu Yan. Judging from your appearance, this crystal must be worth a ton of summoning points, yes. Haha, close but no cookie, it's not qualified by just a ton. Dramatically presenting the white crystal, he grinned. This thing here is worth a whooping 200,000 summoning points. 200,000. Now they finally understood why the guy was such a happy camper. 200,000 PTS, if it were them they would probably have been happy as well, well maybe not to the extent of behaving like him. Nodding furiously, he sold the crystal. Ding, 200,000 summoning points. Satisfied with selling it, he finally calmed down the unreal feeling inside him and clapped his hand before continuing. Now that the auction is over, let's go back to our inn. Hinajika and Mikoto nodded as they walked out of the VIP room. Chapter 71. On their way back, Wu Yan and company took their time. They could hear almost wherever they go the whispers and rumors spreading around the pedestrians. Pedestrian small talk. And body would take note of such a thing yet? Not in this case though. What they're discussing pertains to the treasure map and the party search 3 days later. It only took so long until the situation has progressed to this stage. Locking his brows in a raised manner and hearing the oncoming discussions, he had his thoughts on the matter as well. It has been only 30 minutes or so, and within this so small time frame the information has diffused to the stage where every corner of the supply town is gossiping about it. Isn't this spread a little too fast? It seems the auction firm had some play in this, perhaps they arranged personnel to spread it even further. This additional clue did nothing to calm the furrow on his head. He simply could not figure out why they are doing this. Do they really need to take it so far? Are they not afraid of being nailed for possessing such an item? Or could it be that they don't enough supers on hand? Or maybe, another as yet to know objective. What he can say for sure is that the auction firms aren't r.e.t.a.r.d or selfless saint, giving out the treasure map for free. He cannot believe that the auction firm is doing this for charity. What with the treasure that got a tier 9 into being kill on the line here, why would they possibly want to risk sharing this kind of thing with others? There has to be something they're missing at the moment. The ma.s.s distribution of information, the apparent dauntless attitude. Maybe it's as Hinajika said, they have enough margin to spare for any unexpected situation, in other words trump cards, or even that they have a tier 8 backing them. He rubbed his forehead in frustration and silently laughed sardonically. It seems like I'm not the brainy faction, competing on IQ and strategical thinking is not my forte. With no reliable plan on hand, the thing he could do now is improvise as the situation unfolds. He refused to believe that with all the system's glory and his F.U.C.K ton of points that he would be screwed over so hard his A.N.U.S hurt for weeks. Plus, he's not going at it alone. Looking at Hinagiku and Mikoto who's happily window shopping in front of him, he subconsciously relaxed his frown. He laughed and shook his head to throw the annoying thoughts away before quickly making haste to catch up. That's right, I'm not alone. Inside a slightly larger than norm inn. This inn has quite the reputation in the supply town for being top of the class in scale, in decor, and in service. Basically the most all-rounded inn in the supply town. It's also the most expensive inside the supply town. Hence, only N.O. bless their disciples or famous people with background come to this place. Your run-off-the-mill warriors and magician wished they could stay here, but they don't dare approach. If they stayed, their hard-earned gold from hunting in the giant beast forest would be all wasted on this luxury. Take for example a suite with 1 living room and 2 rooms, it would cost 10 golds to stay a night. But, in any world, there's no lack of people with the dough, like a certain nouveau riche who paid for it like it's nothing. Pushing open the main door to the living room, Wu Yan and company made their way inside. He's grinning inimous.e.m.ent at the 2 girls who can't stop talking about what good things they saw and what beautiful clothes they saw. He sat his A.S. down on the sofa. Hinagiku, Mikoto, I have decided to poke my nose in on this search for the treasure. Hearing him, the 2 stopped their discussion before sitting down to either side of him. Mikoto tidied her skirt. Although she has obtained a new guard, new safety shorts, she's still her girl and she can't act so brazenly, not with this lewd B.A.S.T.A.R.D by his side. His shamelessness knows no bound. Even if you didn't say anything, I would have suggested the same. She swiped her bangs with one hand and one could see for an instant there's some spark going biribiri. She would normally do this when she's excited, and excited she is. Well, look at you. Observing her antics, how can he not be familiar with what her inner monologue is about, besides retorting inside how expected of the adrenaline-seeking, violent railgun, he said nothing else. Aren't you afraid of new danger? You ought to know that the hostiles we encounter this time would be far from the likes of the monster cave. The boss monster from before is only a Chuyuni snake monster with a level 60. This time is different, excluding the unknown danger lurking at the place. The people that comes along might turn into enemies at any time, a lot of them would be a tier 7 level 60. Isn't that more fun? She showed a C.O.C.K sure smirk. If there's more people to beat up, that means more experience points, and I think this might be just the thing I need now. I can definitely do it. Going up to level 70. Level 70, huh? Looks like she hasn't forgotten her main objective of raising her strength, probably for the sake of the sisters. That's good, but I'm just worried that given a lot of people is going be there, it would be chaotic and we might be ganged up on or being conned into something. He's not trying to hurt her zest, he knows that the people he should be wary of the most is the ones from the auction firm and the other people coming along on this journey as well. Surely they would all be tempted by treasure, and soon lose their rationality at its prospects. Greed is the root of all evil, you see. Well, that's Wu Yan himself understand the most likely to occur problems. As a LV5 and boasting such mental capacities, how would Railgun not understand it herself? It's just that her usual antics got to better of rational self. Should we make some provisions? Lightning started flashing and her eyes started shining when she said this. I want to. A bit upset, he continued. The thing is, we don't know what's the true objective of the auction firm, and we also don't know who's coming along on this trip. How do we plan in such a context? Are we just going to give up here? Said Hinagiku with a sleepy, yawning, Lyran who's constantly rubbing her tired eyes in her arms. I already said we are going to mess up some s.h.i.t. Of course we can't just give up, and since we don't have any solid plan, let's just see what we can do with our resources on hand. At this point victory goes to the Dauntless. Under the expecting gaze of the two girls he declared it. He felt like a boss at the moment, of course, that's what he felt, not what others think. Whether or not his words were boss-like is up to debate, but G.O.DDAM.N his words can sure turn the two girls on, their PAS.Zion that is, especially these two hero-like girls. The girls exchanged glance and grinned. Well, it looks like his words managed to strike a chord with them after all. However, seeing that the two girls are getting a bit too riled up for their own good, he changed his tone to get their attention. We can't just rush in without a safeguard, we don't know what might happen, but based on previous conjectures, there's a very high possibility of a tier 8. The two girls frowned when they heard this. Hinagiku then continued. That's right, our strongest fighting power is Mikoto at tier 7 peak. If she were to go up against a tier 8 then it would be very dangerous. Don't worry, we aren't without trump cards. Mikoto touched a potion bottle inside her cloth, that's the resplendent breath he gave her long before. Hinagiku also recalled she had a bottle of it as well. The two instantly had a morale boost. Yes, I know we have a few tricks up our sleeve, but I'm afraid that's not going to cut it. This operation would last more than 3 hours, that's for sure. He rubbed his chin as he gestured to them. Then should we buy a few more resplendent breath? Lyran already entered dreamland, so she's not that restrained in her choice of words anymore. No. It's quite simple really, they have tier 8, why not we fight fire with fire, we get a tier 8 as well. Get a tier 8. The two were bewildered. He beamed. Summoning points. If we don't use it now, when do we use it? TL, next summons clue, Kudir, and she likes watermelon. Try not to cheat 3. Chapter 72. Chapter 72, Summon +1. TL, more like harem +1. Oh yeah, there's summoning. Mikoto slapped her hands together while being enthusiastic. They just got a minor fortune of summoning points. If they used it to summon a tier 8, then their repertoires would increase and they could do away with a few minor issue here and there. But the lassie missed a minor detail in the heat of the moment. She forgot what a summoning entails. If she recalled, then she wouldn't be such a happy camper. Why? Because to summon is synonymous with expanding his crystal palace. Hinagiku nodded her head eagerly while chuckling. I almost forgot about the 200,000 summoning points. We should have enough to summon a tier 8 comrade, yes. Oh look, Hinagiku didn't notice that this would mean a +1 to love rivals as well. Yap, we have enough. He breathed out a sigh of relief deep inside, seeing as the two didn't go ballistic on him. Then he began to wonder, why was he so afraid anyway? The answer is that a certain douchebag have a preconceived notion that summoning is meant to be used for expanding his crystal palace, and that the two pre-existing summons didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. Otherwise, even if he did, he would be in stitches, not figuratively of course. When Mikoto was summoned, the amount was about 70,000, at the time she's pretty much tier 7 peak at level 68, now we have 200,000, go figure. He's starting to feel the hype now. What? A bit upset, she lifted her head to protest. The system must have made some kind of error, how can I be so cheap? You lucky asshole, exploiting the system inefficiency like that. He don't what to say to her. 70,000, that's pretty much all he had at the time, and she calls it cheap. Also, he could see Kaiko-sama barely restraining her lip jerk. If one observe even closer, one might even notice a few telltale signs of blackening. He instantly shrunk his head in response. Oh God, please don't go Darksaber Hinagiku on me. Lest a bloodbath happens. He quickly put a stop to the blabbermouth. Mikoto, 70,000 is not a small figure. You should know I threw in most of my reserve at the time just to summon you. This time it's just lucky that we found the crystal. If not, then let's not even discuss about 200,000, we wouldn't even have 70,000 on hand. She closed her yapper while waving her hand. Fine, I don't particularly mind it anyway. You claimed nonchalance, but your reaction before determined that to be a lie. Even in my death I will make sure on my tombstone it reads I didn't accept her bullshit as a play on my senses. Hinagiku did a breathing routine and calmed down before pointing out to him in a rather distracted manner. Yan, if 70,000 could summon a tier 8 approximate Mikato, then with 200,000 it should be enough to summon a tier 9 no. She startled herself at the implications of the latter half of her speech. Wu Yan's know better, he beamed in response. I don't know. Don't know. Maybe it's because she hasn't let go of the matter from before, or maybe because he's too unreliable, nobody knows, but Kaiko-sama is not amused when she said this, her tone raised a few pitches. Like a spineless coward he adjusted his ass and dodged her glare. Well, about that, I have the next nominee in mind already, so I didn't consider the 200,000 as the main parameter for making a decision. In other words, I'm not sure whether or not we can summon a tier 9. Then why don't you ask the system? She rolled her eyes reflexively. This sleek bastard was so reliable in the Yakai cave, why so spineless now? I don't think there's a need for that. A protest so weak even a breeze could blow it away came from his mouth. I've already decided on who to summon, and a tier 8 should be enough to deal with this matter, so we don't need to consider another candidate at the moment, or that's what I think. This is one of the nozo no die moment, and yet he went ahead and done fuck it up. He has no choice. If he really asked the system and a positive response came, then he would have no option other than to summon a tier 9. But he's so dead set on this one, he must summon it. Sure, this girl didn't need 200,000, and by extension her strength pales in comparison to one of such caliber. However, strength and whatnot can go screw itself when compared to the summons character. So why beat around the bush? Well, as said, this is a nozo no die moment and he is in for it now. If he said it, it would surely hasten his inevitable demise. Oh good God, Hinagiku has a very dangerous squint to her eyes right now. She's staring at him with a very doubtful attitude. I say, it's just asking the system. Why are you so prejudiced against the idea? Tier 8 is enough probably, but isn't a tier 9 more reassuring? Our moveset could be more diverse if we had a tier 9, yes? Why are you so opposed to it? Could it be that? While saying this, Hinagiku stretched out one of her hand and smack it landed on his shoulder lightly. With a beautiful countenance and a sweet tone she interrogated him. You have something else that you're not sharing with us at the moment, a hidden agenda so to speak. His body flinched in terror the moment her hand touched his shoulder. When she showed that dazzling smile, that's when he's starting to piss his pants. Only he would know the true nature that hides behind the dazzling smile. It's like the attractive allure of a demon. He really looked that suspicious, what with the avoidance of eye contact and fidgety appearance. It seemed like he's guilty of something. It's just that. It's my humblest opinion that we shouldn't use power and strength to judge a summon nominee. The individual would be our comrade after that, is it not? If we just use strength as a criterion to weed out samples, then it would make us very tunneled vision, you see. Like a master of sophistry he said that, like the truth is standing behind him. That's so. Mikato also started doubting him for having other motives, based on his appearance and speech patterns. This is very suspicious. Never has he felt such great pressure, what with facing against two chicks that could very well turn into tigresses on him. Holy shit, do they really expect him to tell that who he's about to summon is a chick who has a rocking body, docile and obedient a majority of the time, soft and tender to the touch, who could turn into an enemy's worst nightmare at a switch of mode? Her airheadedness is through the roof and probably is very easy to push down on bed at any moment. A being that would call him master in a soft and mellow voice, the embodiment of an otaku's dream, the legendary goddess of all otaku males. If he really said it out loud, forget Tigress, the two girls would go Ajuramoto on him. I have a hunch that you're hiding something here. The two girls shot a glare at him. They can't find anything to argue against in his seemingly reasonable words. But it's fishy as hell, that's for sure. Ma, don't say that. she's going to be a comrade that fights side by side with us through good times and bad times, although we haven't summoned her yet. What you're saying right now is very rude. He had a serious face as he said this, but how much of him is actually serious, that will have to be discussed the next time. You have a point. After hearing him, the two girls did feel they were being a bit rude. However, they just couldn't curb the feeling that something is off here. When he said through good times and bad times, they felt like they're missing something very crucial here. Seeing as the two are stumped by him, he tried to hurry the whole thing along before they catch up to him. Alright, I will begin the summoning soon. You girls should hit the sack, or do you want to stay and watch the peep show? What do you mean by peep show? Can't you use a more colloquial phrase like watch the show? Although one must say he sure can divert a subject, he has already moved shit past the radar without the two even noticing it. With a few dry laughs, he relaxed when he saw the two girls didn't have any notion of pursuing the subject. But they still might catch up to him if he let the opportunity slip. To prevent any unexpected circumstances from cock-blocking him, he pulled out the list without even mentioning what he's doing. With godly speed he quickly found the target of summon. Ikaros, a character from Sara no Otoshimono, self-proclaimed entertainment super versatile angel. Her true nature is strategic angeloid type alpha, a strategical weapon, nicknamed Sky Queen, summoning points 100,000. That's right. Ikaros. The dream of otaku males. Savage and soft at times, one that could be poked and touched, a goddess of otakus that could be pushed down and raised. Ikaros. With much heavy breathing he clicked summon in a time frame of less than 0.01 second. Chapter 73. From previous experience, summons will always appear in front of him after summoning. Like an eager kid he pressed the summon B.U.T.Ton and gawked at the direction of the hall. A pity, that's because what greeted him is not the shoujo in his mind but a line from the system. Beep. The summon in question has her memory and feelings restricted. Remove said restriction. He's startled by the sudden announcement, but he soon recalled what it is. System said that any summon would be the one a day before the plotline begins in their story. In the case of the world he hasn't visited as seen here, Ikaros is still restricted a day before the plotline begins. Or else, she wouldn't have referred to herself as the entertainment purposes versatile angel. A big part of the reason is that her memory had been sealed. Now that he is summoning this version of Ikaros, it can't be helped that she is still under such a sealed state. In the original story, it was who lifted the seal on her. That's something that happened a bit after the start of the plot line though. With such a prompt from the system he recalled that there was such a thing. Quite frankly, it slipped past him. He didn't think the system would be so considerate as to suggest removal of the seal. He's satisfied and feeling guilty at the moment. System, sorry for calling you a troll. Who knew you were such a great person? Wait, no, great system. So he praised the system in his heart, like, the only thing missing now would be him kneeling down and saying, this one sin ought be punished with 10,000 deaths. Beep. To remove the seal on Ikaros, it requires another 6,000 summoning points. In that instant, take the satisfaction, take the guilt, take the good bro card. He took everything he said and threw it into giant beast forest, and his gratitude and praises all turned into cusses like no other. I am going to take that considerate and shove it up your trolling A.S.S. F.U.C.Ku. What's with his pricing system that requires 6,000 summoning points to remove some lord knows what seal? This is just another ploy to screw me over, isn't it? Kaiko-sama didn't even need this much when I summoned her. Although Hinajuku and Mikoto didn't know what transpired, judging from his look that changed from expectation to realization and then to being moved and now a state of exasperation and vacancy. Going by his previous records of exhibiting such R.E.T.A.R.D.E.D. behaviors, they're already blasé, they're not even tsukamai him. Phew. Calming his jimmies, he duly pointed out to them with a bored expression. Oh, it's nothing, I just have some thoughts about being made to jump through some hoops. They are curious but they wouldn't understand even if he did explain it to them, so they didn't. This is certainly not the first he has gone off on a different frequency and spoke in some incoherent language. So where's the summon? Mikoto looked around but they still see only a vacant hall and a sleeping Lyran. Hinagiku looked curious as well, different from the two. She haven't seen a summoning before, he's seen it twice and she's seen it once. It's just her who haven't seen characters grow out of nowhere. Scratching his cheeks, he wrly laughed. Minor, issues, so the summon kind of failed. Failed. The two yelped. It was loud enough to almost wake Lyran. Lord knows what she's mumbling about, but Lyran muttered something and turned to the side. The two girls were frozen in place as they hurriedly closed their mouth with their hands. Only after ascertaining that she's just tossing about and still remains within dreamland did they pursue him. What do you mean by failure? Well, not exactly failure, but a minor complication. Minor complication, oh how his teeth itched at the words. Well, since it hasn't failed then hurry up and summon. Stop dilly-dallying. 'Twas an unamused Mikoto who's folding her arms. Sighing and feeling powerless he went ahead and did what she said. Here I go. He glimpsed at the 126000 summoning points notification on his user stat before sighing again. It seems, the system is trying to juice him dry. Paying the extra 6000 he clicked summon. Ding. The seal on Ikaros has been removed. Beep. The default equipment on Ikaros named transport card does not conform to the system's rules. It has been removed and set up to the system at no recompensation. Thank you for your generosity. Where does this furious urge to hit somebody come from? He ruffled his hair while powerlessly grumbling and crying without the tears. He can understand why the transport card would be removed given its story-breaking power, but, in the end he's still not happy, especially so when the system in his perception rubbed him off with the thank you for your generosity part. He's basically flipping out. Wait, no, he's flipping out all right. In the quiet hall, a golden light appeared. It was so bright the three had to squint and guard against T.I.T with a hand. After the light sustained itself for a bit, it dimmed down and a tall figure started appearing out from the receding beam of light. The three had different reactions to it. Wu Yan's very moved at the sight, while the two girls were stupefied by it. They can't find the right words to describe how they feel at the moment. Hair barely covering her ears, pink hair down to her neck, a face so sculptured it attained an artistic perfection, no excess at all, her eyes that were tightly shut added that much more peacefulness and tranquility to her face. The top half of her body were barely covered and on her shoulder were two shoulder pads. Her arms were also protected by arm guards, her lower parts were covered with a battle skirt. There's no excess meat on her slim long white legs. That's definitely an eye candy when coupled with her smoking body. What's more awe-inspiring is the two light pink wings behind the girl. She looks like an angel descending upon this earth. So beautiful. Before they got out of their stupor, the words beautiful slipped out from their mouth. And who could blame them? Under the light beam, she appeared sublime. Wu Yan on the other hand is on a different kind of exaggerated reaction. Two wave-shaped tear trails started streaming down his cheeks from G.O.D. No when, clearly the guy is very moved. While still lost in their thoughts the light went away and Ikaros appeared in all her glory in front of the three, only that her eyes are still shut tightly. When Ikaros appeared in front of them the trio froze. Hinagiku and Mikoto dropped their jaw looking at the two humongous thing. Relatively speaking, they turned into stones. He in comparison has his eyes popped out and he extended his neck outwards if only to get closer to that divine ravine by even just a bit. Smoking body. B.I.T.C.H. Puliase, in front of those two blessed construction of a heavenly nature all is but a fleeting cloud. Well anyway it didn't matter what the three thought, at least the recently arrived angelic girl, Ikaros wouldn't know, that's for sure. A tiny light shot out from the angelic girl and it connected him with her. After synchronization the light turned into a light ball and entered him. When consciousness returned to her and her bodily function began to resume. After the mysterious adjustment to her memories, the angelic girl opened her eyes gradually. Chapter 74. Like a newborn animal, her eyelids twitched and slowly she opened her eyes. Her indigo-colored eyes appeared from underneath the eyelids. It is a very vacant one. The eyes made her look stiff. After opening her eyes she lifted her head and took in the first image after summoning, and that is when she saw it. The completely moved expression on Wu Yan, Liren sleeping soundly with a big smile, and Hinajiku, Mikoto who's hurt for some reason. She laid her eyes on the for a bit before returning it to him. Her wings flapped open and a few feathers fell. When they floated downwards it made a beautiful scene once more. She flapped her wings and her legs left the ground, floating in the air. It didn't take long before she arrived in front of him. This surprised the three who couldn't react in time. Almost the same time she fell on the ground, her alluring crimson lips opened and a soft mellow voice resounded. Encryption. Begin. After that line, what appeared to be formulas started flashing in her eyes. And then, nothing happened. 'Twas Wu Yan. 'Twas Hinajiku. 'Twas Mikoto. 'Twas Ikaros. The whole place fell into an awkward silence. They expected her to do something and looked around, but nothing happened, so they returned their gaze to her. And the whole silent scene enacted once more. A subtle change happened in her emotionless eyes. It started to exhibit what looks like a bit of panic. Touching her neck she felt her skin. In her impression it seemed like she has been wearing a chain around her neck since her creation, but that chain's gone now. Feeling her smooth neck, her face didn't change much, but there's definitely more panic inside her eyes now. The inscription necklace is gone, gone. She muttered with an ineffable amount of feelings behind it. After organizing the information that appeared out of nowhere in her mind, she understood that this was no longer her old world. But, to her, this didn't really mean much change at all. To her it's just a change of master from one to another. In the end she's still another tool. Her reason for being is to obey the Missioner's command, that is all. Regarding her present predicament, there's nothing much to say in her opinion. Inside her settings, she just need to identify the master, activate the encryption necklace and leave everything else to the master, finally listening to his commands. That's about it. This much is a given to her. But right now she can't stay calm. The necklace is gone. Inscription is thus impossible, and therefore she can't have a master. This much is too hard for processing by her immature emotional processing system. No master means she can't take order, and if she can't take orders she wouldn't know what to do. If she doesn't know what to do, then she looked composed without the slightest hint of being fluid. Tearing. But how can he not see the eyes that were practically shouting? They were at a loss. Observing the beautiful girl, the moved feeling he had receded, and what replaced it were infinite sympathy. The girl is an artificial angel. Ikaros is made a weapon. Everything she does after creation is for the master. Each one of her behavior is under the command of her master. Every move she makes is under the direct order of the master. Basically, her whole life it has been one fight after another. She's not nymph or Astrea. Her emotional processes are just that, undeveloped. Undeveloped, but it exists. Her feelings, that is. With her simplistic cognition it's very likely that the terror she feels right now is very real and very pure in nature. It's too bad she didn't have the ability to self-determine. In other words, she can't think for herself. When the necklace disappeared, what has been the only cyst she had is gone, and she didn't know what to do now. And so she started to become lost, just like a helpless little girl. While Hinajiku and Mikoto is still busy putting on G.O.D know what kind of reaction, he lightly laughed and stretched out his hand and laid them on her head. Still somewhere distant in her mind, Ikaros felt a sudden warmth coming from the top of her. Lifting her head she sees a grinning Wu Yan. After he rubbed her pink head good and enjoying the pretty watery eyes on her, his voice sounded so loving to her. Ikaros. He moved his hand over to her neck while caressing her. He continued with a bright smile. Say, Akaros, do you know why your collar disappeared? She shook her head with an expressionless face and no further movement can be observed from her. That's because our lives are now connected and we can't stay apart from each other anymore. This kind of relationship can't be compared to the S.H.I.Tty collar you had. That's why, the system took it away. It's because we are already connected and there's no such need for something like that. He retrieved his hand before rubbing her head with a grin. Your everything belongs to me. So, don't go thinking so hard about useless stuff. She vacantly looked at him before her eyes began brightening up. Her lost eyes started disappearing without a trace when a warm feeling started emanating out from within. Returning to a state without billow, she replied. Yes. She retracted the wings and shrunk them down to a small wing about the size of a palm before lightly continuing. I am the multipurpose strategic type Alpha Angeloid, Akaros, nice to meet you. My master. He also greeted him with a wide grin. Well then, Akaros, I'm Wu Yan, I will be in your care. Yes, master. The two Nico-Mimi-like thing on the side of her head fluttered as she expressionlessly said. He nodded his head and just before he's about to say something, two slender hands clapped down on his shoulder on either side. What he saw when he turned his head is enough to make him almost pee his pants. Standing behind him is Kaiko-sama and Railgun, who had their hand on his shoulders. The twitching lips and dangerous glare tipped him off enough to know that he's in for it now. Could you please start explaining? Her other hand made a motion that looked like she's about to materialize Shiro Sakura any moment now. Shrinking his shoulder back, the two kept their iron grip. What could he do but wryly laugh? Explain what? Explain what? Mikoto tightened her grasp on him while forcing a smile. Don't you think you should explain why she's... Pointing at Akaros, she yelled at him. Why she's calling you master? There's a very good reason. An undeniably logical reason for this. He can feel his heart throbbing like none before. Putting on a distorted smile, he stuttered. Undeniably logical reason, you say? Why does it look like you were natural with how she called you? She cynically grinned at him. Or could it be, you already knew something like this would happen before the summon? Sakura petals started flying and flowed around her palm before a crystal sword materialized out of nowhere. Mikoto's bangs started floating and bluish-white lightning arced about, making thunder around her. Last but not least, the cold sweat flowing down his head. Chapter 75. Yan, Hinagika clinged to Wu Yan with teary eyes. She then closed her eyes and proceeded to try and connect her lips with his. Gulping incessantly, he moved his lips towards her as well. At the same time, another pair of hands encircled his waist. Turning his attention over, he saw a teary-eyed Mikoto licking her lips while curling her cherry lips in a manner no less provocative than Hinagiku's. The intent is clear as day. Hugging them left and right, he's practically oozing happiness. Switching between the two ladies, he really didn't know who to choose at the moment and is in a peace blossom-colored conundrum. Master. Another sound came, soft and mellow like a pleasant bell. It rang slightly by the side of his ear. Simultaneously he felt some extremely divine and soft sensation pressing against his back, making him waver like no instance before. Turning back, what entered his eyes is the delicate and somewhat airheaded looking Akaros, who's clinging to his waist as well. Because his point of view is like this, he could naturally see the hallowed twin mountain of the saintess. Taking in her alluring action that is practically begging someone to push her down, his breathing became rough. Yan. Right when he's about to go full feral on Akaros, two low growls worse than the vilest demons from the pits of H.E.L.L. made him dismiss the thought without much deliberation. Like a poorly oiled machine, he rigidly turned only to see a scene he would never forget, at least not in this lifetime. Hinagiku's holding Shiro Sakura and is in altar mode. H.E.L.L. Even the background faded away into darkness. What's more noteworthy is that the blade itself has become blackened. Meanwhile, Mikoto is standing there with clothes and hair fluttering in the air without a assistance from any kind of wind whatsoever. The electricity flowing around her has an unprecedented speed. He knew he done f.u.c. Get up when he sees that the electricity has also turned into a color that of the deepest night. Blackened, they've gone alter. He's terrified to his very core while backpedaling away. With black nada and black electricity they are out for a piece of that A.S.S, not the intimate kind of course. You double-crossing big carrot playboy. Die. He got his head cut off and his body electrolyzed into G.O.D knows what matter. Argh. Inside one of the room, he quickly opened his eye and shot up from his bed throwing the blanket that was on him flying with a kick as well. His shirt so soaking wet one could wring liquid out of it, sweaty-faced and heaving he surveyed his surrounding. Finding it to be safe, he sighed a breath of relief. It was just a dream. Wiping his forehead he adjusted his pulse and breathing rate while being happy and grateful inside. It's just a dream, nothing more than a dream. Ha ha, ha ha ha, as if it could go any other way, the two girls are very kind, why would they cut me, everything's a dream. The pathetic guy tried to console himself as he got more and more shaky towards the end of his sentence. This dream, it's not a portent of something right. Recalling the scene of him meeting his Yandere end, he felt his throat burning up with immense thirst. No, it's not, it's a mere dream, that's right, a mere dream. Dryly laughing he shook his head and repeatedly chanted the sentence as if trying to hypnotize himself. Argh mother f.u.c. Cur. Here the blade comes. A voice out of nowhere made him jump out of fright. He hurriedly covered his head with the blanket and started trembling on the spot. Sniffles, I won't do it anymore, please don't give me the nada, I beg of. His begging echoed within the blanket and his body trembled even harder. Don't cut me please, I'm not your master, so please don't chat. He stopped suddenly, flinching. It seems he has regained some sort of sense. Master. He popped out his head from the blanket like a turtle and looked towards the origin of the sound only to be surprised at what he sees. Akaros. Seeing that Akaros is sitting by at the bed he cried out to her. Yes, master. Akaros got up, her motions jiggled her jiggly puffs, gawking as per usual. He got even more thirsty. Do you have any orders, master? Seemingly unaware of just how flirtatious she looks, the vacant expression her answered him. Turned on, he looked at her juicy body, spurred by her words his blood rushed to a certain extremity on him. It's morning, and guess what's the time males tend to be the excited, given that he's a male. Presented with such a fine rocking girl before him, and she's asking any orders, you tell me why shouldn't he have lewd thoughts now? Feeling so hard it hurts, he set his gaze on Akaros while preparing to give his order. All of a sudden the previous dream flashed in his mind. Shivering, all the evil lewd thoughts disappeared with nary a trace, his lower half also calmed down, the impossible request in his mind shelved away, the frustration almost killed him. Cough cough cough. He's not going to die from it, but f.u.c.kdam.n his chest hurts, he simply can't stop coughing, if this keeps up it might just be the death of him. Seeing that he's coughing non-stop, Akaro's ears twitched and while tilting her head she can feel that her master seems to be in a troubled state. But she didn't know what to do to relieve him and make him happy. Hence, she could only remain motionless and observe him as he coughed on. She may look vacant but he can guess more or less what she's thinking, so he motioned to her. It's nothing much, it's just a cough, nothing big. Since he said so, Akaros chose to listen to him. Patting his chest he heaved a big breath before turning to her with a hint of helplessness. Akaros, what's the matter? Tilting her head again she stared at him with her indigo eyes. She looks like she's trying to figure out how to answer him. Some half a day later, she managed to squeeze out a word. Nothing. Nothing. Obviously stupefied by her response he mirrored her words before responding a bit speechless. If it's nothing then why are you in my room? He got wrecked by Hinajiku and Mikoto last night. Bruised black and blue on the nose and face he managed to persuade them somehow. During another round of flogging AD.I.C.K, the two's brutality almost made Akaros bring out Apollon. He frantically explained to her how the two girls are just playing around with nothing but good intentions. G.O.D. He almost died from exhaustion from that one. After a long and lengthy discussion deep into the night, the two figured out Akaro's innocence and dragged her back to their room. He didn't know what's their intention and what happened afterwards, that's why he's questioning her. Too bad he won't be getting his answer anytime soon though. She blanked out for a second before briefly answering him. Akaros, came to see Master sleep. Watch me sleep. Startled, he rubbed his cheeks before throwing away his blanket and sitting in front of her. He asked her with much curiosity. Why watch me sleep? Why? Putting on a pensive face, in other words not changing much of her usual expression. To watch Master sleep. Jerking his lips he sighed. He understands Akaros to a certain extent, but s that extent sometime one just can't understand what's going through that mind of hers. What's so fun about watching me sleep? If you watch me sleep, then how are you going to sleep? Sleep. Lowering her head she lightly muttered. Akaros, has no need for sleep. Don't need sleep? Don't need to sleep. As an angeloid she didn't need nor can she sleep. Looking at her, who's also vacantly staring back at him, he reached out to rub her head. While doing so he had some thoughts going around his mind. He's got to think of something to solve this inability to sleep of hers. Otherwise it's just too pitiful for her during the nights where she's the only one awake. Chapter 76. In another room, Hinagiku and Mikoto woke up. The two woke up Lyran as well, and they proceeded to the washroom to rinse their mouth and begin changing. It's standard female routine. They posh up a little here and there to be more presentable. But enforcing this kind of standard on Kaiko-sama and Railgun would be a bit of a stretch. Yes, the two are girls, but they gravitate more towards the masculine side. They tidied their hair and clothes, and that's it for their early morning routine. What take forever for other girls is just a snap for them. When they walked out of the room and came to the guest hall, they were surprised by what they saw. Sup, I see you're awake now. They are greeted by Wu Yan, who's sitting there having breakfast while giving them a casual greeting. You what? The two girls pointed their trembling hand at him. It's like they just saw a ghost or something. Veritably he has reason to be twitching his lips. I say, what's with that taken aback reaction? He's on the verge of table flipping now, in addition to jerking lips. Are you really Yan? Not some poser or anything. Okay, Hinagiku crossed the line with that one. I say, why is it so inconceivable to you girls that I'm like this? He feels like biting someone and he's very upset. He reckons that anybody would in such a situation, at the very least they would still be upset. While they are conversing, they took Lyran, who's curiously observing Akaros, to the side and sat down. Seeing the dishes prepared on the table, Hinagiku continued. Of course we are surprised. Mikoto A.S. her. You lazy B.U.M, as long as it's not 10 a.m. you definitely won't be waking up. Raising one of his eyebrow he retorted at her. That can't be. During my stint as a butler of the Katsura, I will have you know I wake up early every single day. Curling her lips, Hinagiku shot him down. Is that right? I remember clearly during said period I would always go and flip the blanket on you. If it were not for me you would probably have forgotten to go to CLA.S.SES as well. There's nothing he can say now. Snickering, Hinagiku grabbed one of the bread on the table and chomped down. Instantly she frowned along with Mikoto. This bread, where is this from? After another bite the two girls put down the bread in their hand with clear dissatisfaction. It would seem the bread don't suit their taste. What's wrong? Grabbing his third bread he wolfed it down while being puzzled at their reaction. This is made by the hotel, is it ento good? I for one think it tastes okay. It's not made by you. Please. Rolling his eyes he continued. This is a hotel, room service much. Why make it yourself? The two are let down at his response. Hinagiku even grumbled in a barely audible tone. Well, you made them before. I'm not your personal chef. Raising his hand in protest. It feels like the 2LAS.SIE is taking him for one before. AI, what to do now? She said with a sullen look while poking the bread on the table. After eating his dishes, normal dishes don't taste like they used to. Kaiko-sama got fed by him for 1 month, let it not be forgotten that he still has culinary master. During that 1 month she has eaten nothing but food made by him. It's safe to say her standard has been raised to a very high level due to being fed by him. Now that they are confronted with the food made by a hotel, the food doesn't suit their palate. Mikoto as well, only Lyran, who has never tasted his personally made food, is having a blast with the feast. He understands this and would just like to throw a tsukamai at them. This is food made by a hotel frequented by N.O. Bless, and she called it normal dishes, apologized to the hotel boss who hired the famous chefs with high premiums. However, he's also a bit proud of himself. Now you know you can't leave Moinon. It's your fault, Yan. Why'd you have to go and make your food taste so great? Now we can't enjoy other people's dishes. Mikoto gnashed her teeth while snapping at him. Swallowing down the last bread on his hand, he helplessly responded to them. Just play along for now, aren't you girls hungry? Truth be said, Kaiko-sama and Railgun are a little hungry, so they can only eat the bread they put down before, albeit a little bit reluctant as shown by their complaining face. Finally, Lyran at Hinagiku's side, who had previously been quietly and curiously looking at Ikaros, finally spoke out like a curious child her age. Who's the pretty sister? Startled, it's only now that the three recalled that Lyran had not been acquainted to Ikaros. Oh yeah, Ikaros. The two girls sheepishly turned around to Ikaros. They were a bit ashamed that they forgot all about Ikaros. Ikaros also shared some blame as well. What with being all obedient and quiet there standing behind him. It's not that her existence is that little, rather it's quite the contrary. It's hard not to notice someone so beautiful. If one were to make an A.N.A. Logi and Ikaros is a honey peach, then Hinagiku and Mikoto would be immature green apples. Why? Because they are respectively 14-year-old and 15-year-old, their body aren't that mature yet, even with their exquisite features. Relative to Ikaros they still have some ground to cover. That's presently speaking, of course. Wait until the two half-lowly grow up, then it's up to debate. This is in the context where he told Ikaros to dress up in normal clothing and hide that wing of hers, otherwise she would be even more eye-catching than now. In the end, she's a comrade who just joined last night, so they might still be forgiven for not noticing. Pretty sister, why are you ignoring Lyran? Do you hate Lyran? Mewled the feeble little Lyran when she saw that Ikaros only looked at her with an expressionless face without answering her. Haha, Lyran, don't her, Ikaros is not ignoring you, it's just that Ikaros isn't that much a communicative person in the first place. Seeing that Lyran's a bit dejected, he tried cheering him on. He denies any allegation that he has been Momo-kuned. Mikoto looked at Ikaros before shooting a question at her. By the way, Ikaros, did you get up early? I didn't. You before when I woke up, I thought for sure you went somewhere. As if the thought that she's the subject of the conversation just registered, she turned her head slowly to glance at Wu Yan before muttering. I went to Master's RO. Listening to her, some alarm deep within him rang out. F.U.C.K. If they find out she had been in his room the whole night, then Jesus be a bro, he's going to die a gruesome death, as sure as Moses splitting sea. Recalling the dream he had, his heart beat like crazy as he quickly interjected. That's right, Hinagiku, Mikoto, what's the arrangement for Lyran when we go treasure hunting? Well, you gotta give the guy credit, he chose a very good topic to divert their attention. Looking at Lyran, Hinagiku hesitated a bit before answering. About that. I want to go as well. Not giving her the chance to finish, Lyran jumped up with zing and declared. No, you can't. The place we are going to is too dangerous for you. Mikoto immediately protested after hearing her little declaration. Lyran is just a little girl who can't protect herself. I don't care, I don't care. I wanna go. Changing her tone into one that is sobbish, she clung to Hinajiku. Sister Hinajiku, brother, please don't leave Lyran behind, I don't want to leave you guys. Hugging Lyran, Hinajiku looked to him for further action as she doesn't know how to respond. Sighing, he continued after a bit of deliberation. Let's bring her, we don't have any other alternatives at the moment. I think based on our abilities we can still cover her. Mikoto nodded in acquiescence, he already said so. Lyran immediately turned that fro upside down and is currently jumping for joy. Glancing over all the girls present, he mumbled. And now, we wait. Chapter 77. And so 3 days said just like that. The supply town Southern Plaza, biggest plaza around this part of town. If one were to walk a bit further then one would find the southern exit of the supply town. This place may be big, but since it's not en route to Giant Beast Forest nor is it a famous path, normally there won't be many people here. But at the moment, the people present here could be described as being a mountain or seas of people. Wu Yan and company can't help but stand flabbergasted at one corner of this plaza. They are speechless at the sheer amount of traffic here. A prudent estimate would put the number at beyond 10,000s. It seems the auction firm has been very busy these last few days. To actually be able to spread it to such a degree and with such a turnout, one can't complain about their efficiency. He frowned when he saw tons of groups, small and big, along with some mercenary bands spread here and there. The reason he's frowning is because the people present here could very well turn at any moment when they find the treasure. He simply rejects the notion of an altruistic Samaritan sharing his treasure with everyone. Looks like a lot of family and mercenary bands sent people to come and test the water. Mikoto darted her eyes to survey the whole place along with the people here. She's not scanning for numbers, she's not that bored. Rather, she's utilizing the scanning function to scan over all the battle power of the people present. Hinajiku has Lyran in her arms while she's doing the same thing as well. The light effect in their eyes never stopped revolving. Tensing up, she uttered her first thought. There's a lot of powerful individuals. Wu Yan and company has a very short history on Silveria, even the most senior of them has only been here no more than a few months. In other words, he's not that familiar or well connected yet. Familia no one cares, for example, mercenary Su 3Ka Di 3K for example, he doesn't recognize a single one of them. He's not bothering to remember the names of the person he scanned as well, they are just numbers, why bother? Strength A.N.A.Lising however takes absolute priority. There might be instances of powerful threats. Below tier 5, there's practically innumerable mooks to go around. And being mooks, they aren't material in their countermeasure efforts. What they are looking out for are those people that is worth their consideration. Tier 6, close to 100. Hinajiku reported. Tier 7, 15 spotted. Mikoto curled her lip at the amount while reporting to him. Tier 8, none as of now. Raising his eyebrow, he lightly brushed his sights over the F.U.C.K ton of people. Narrowing her eyes, Mikoto is resisting her impulse of excitedly letting out electricity, but the corner of her lips betrayed her. So many supers, now this makes you excited yet? Giving her the white of his eyes, he interjected her with a teasing tone. We are trying to gauge the number and magnitude FO threats to us, while you, looks like you're having fun. I think you should keep in mind that there's more than 100 people that could pose harm to us. You say it's 100 plus, but out of those number there's no one who could really fight on par with me, isn't it? Brushing her bangs, she grinned. There's 15 above level 60 sure, but the one with the highest level would be me at 69. Not a threat to you, but what if it's relative to us? Shrugging his shoulders, he waved his hands. I'm just a level 50 here, that means those 100 plus are a risk to me. Also, You're not afraid of 1v1, but what about 1 versus the world? Afraid now? Okay, I'm just saying sheesh, like I'm not aware of that. Seriously, why you've got to be such a stiff. Her hot-blooded mood just got battered into nothing from his verbal onslaught. She feels like the person in front of her is annoying in multiple ways. That's enough, we have a Karos, so we needn't be as worried now. Hinajika put a prompt stop to the two. Geez, if they're worried about strength disparity, what about her? Shouldn't she be so afraid that she's shivering in fear? Certainly we do have a Karos. He turned to sneak a peek at the expressionless Akaros staring at him. Her appearance calmed him down somewhat. If we say Mikoto needs to look out for encirclement since there's 10 plus individuals who could fight her, then Akaros wouldn't have such a consideration at all. In fact, he can go further and claim that even if all the people present were to gang up, they still wouldn't be able to put up a decent fight. Zerg rush or any other tactics that rely on numbers to overwhelm our mood against her, a strategic warfare angeloid with Ma.S.S killing weapons on her. Akaros is an existence that can end an entire civilization. What's more, his compatriots aren't vegetarians, TL, docile, chicken S.H.I.T, weak. Electromaster, LV4. Nitano no Shana, Grade C, Conceptual Dragon Armor, Grade C. Misaka Mikoto, Katsura Hinajiku, Akaros. 21000. 81000. 101000. 120000. 50. Electromaster, LV5. 69. 35. Unit. Akaros. Ability. Ura.N.U.S Queen Mode. Power. Stamina. Agility. Psychological. Artemis Perpetual Homing Missile, Grade C, Aegis Absolute Defensive Perimeter, Grade C, Apollon, Grade C, Ura.N.U.S System, Grade B. Level 77. He dismissed the status list and eyed the Tier 7 posers that's leading them. N.O. Body noticed him grinning. Although Hinajiku and him aren't that high relative the ones present, just talking about him alone there's more than 100 people stronger than him at the moment. What's to say of Hinajiku? However, in the context that no Tier 8 makes an appearance, Mikoto is the strongest one here. Akaros being his trump card also gives him much assurance. Level 77. Tier 8, baby. Furthermore, she's in the upper echelon of said tier. It wouldn't be a stretch to say she could rank among the top. She also comes with an A.R.S.Nl of lethal equips that send shivers up his spine. It is his firm belief that Akaros is the strongest Tier 8 there is. Come a Tier 9 and they would still have trouble dealing with her. Ignoring the 3 Grade C equips, she has within her possession a Grade B. Gold armament. That's something only a Tier 9 would have business swining around. It's something he himself doesn't have yet. Tier 8 people curse their poor luck. Are you telling me it's so hard to believe that given there's no Tier 9 and with something of this level she can own everyone's A.S.S? Give or take, her other equipments aren't trashy either. Between the same Grade C, there's qualitative differences, to put it as an A.N.A. Loki, just like how there's a gap between a level 60 and a level 69, the same applies here. So how much is that gap? To put it in a more relatable context, let's take Wu Yan's armaments Nitano no Shana and Conceptual Armor, they are middle and upper position. Akaros Aegis and Artemis also occupies the upper position. What's ridiculous is her Apollon, being only a Grade C, and yet after consultation with T-System he found out that it's Grade C but it's infinitely close to Grade B. There you have it folks, a high-level high-specs op girl. And thus the reason he can afford to take a mascot Lyran on this trip while having close to nothing to fear. Yes, they are only a 5-person group that can't be numerically comparable to the Big Families X or gargantuan mercenary band Smoke a Weed. Qualitatively they are in a CLA.S all their own. That and the stockpile of sundries he bought yesterday with some 70,000 item points, he has confidence that this trip will be a fruitful one. Basically, he's all fired up. Chapter 78. Just when the people gathered and is having a blast chatting, a loud wind-blowing noise disrupted them. The wind came from overhead. It is so strong that the whole place had draft sounds resounding all over. The individuals on the lighter side of the weight spectrum had to grab onto another person to avoid being blown over. It's just a harmless wind, but let's try and see it from the point of view of the girls. Sure, the wind can't blow them off their feet, but it definitely is strong enough to rustle their clothes. The female warriors are safe since they have 1 or 2 light armors, relatively safer than the female magicians, that is. The sorceress and female magicians donned light robes. Add that in the equation of blessed wind of the G.O.ds and what have you. Their clothes were all pulled up and their skirts and lower garments were practically dancing in the wind. Relishing in the blessing of the G.O.ds, all the brothers cheered. The whole place had its volume turned up to 11. All them male brothers were cheering and whistling in delight. Clearly this trip has not been in vain. Wu Yan? He's a temporary member of this blessed faction of brothers. By his 3 girls plus 1 loli had their skirts uplifted slightly by the wind as well. Hinajiku and Mikoto are pressing down hard on their skirts to prevent being seen. Even if they did, he has no interest. They are wearing safety shorts, you see. The little loli, Lyran, on the other hand, had some prospect. He gracefully took a peek and saw a cute little pantsu. Well, it's just a PRT because Hinajiku held down her skirt as well. What is making him secretly pleased is Akaro's, being a versatile angeloid who's air-headed. The wind blew her skirt up high, revealing her cute little white undergarment without sparing any effort. She just stood there like the word cover isn't in her dictionary. She's curious as to what Wu Yan is looking at that's so interesting while standing in that fashion. Hinajiku and Mikoto didn't have any margin to cover for her, not when they had trouble keeping themselves protected as well. They also didn't notice what's going on over at Akaro's side as well, so Wu Yan acted like any good gentleman would do and blocked Akaro's from the point of view of others. He also took the opportunity to open his eyes wide and take in the glory that is Akaro's lower half. As he's having the time of his life exhibiting his shameless attribute, Akaro's only blinked a few times and continued gazing motionlessly at him like a sculpture. Very soon the mastermind of this atrocity appeared before the Ma.S.ses. More specifically, above the Ma.S.ses in the sky. Its body has a unique design and it descended from the sky. It's a large ship, and standing at the bow of the ship is the old auctioneer that made an appearance last time in the auction. "A flying ship!" exclaimed Hinajiku when she sees this spectacle. It's fortunate that the wind is billowing really loud and her voice is limited to Wu Yan and company, otherwise she would have attracted the gaze of others. This is due to the fact that the airship is the main transport vehicle of Silveria. It's pretty rare for someone not to have seen this, and that's why if anybody other than them heard her, then others would definitely see her as some hillbilly or alien from another planet. Way! It's an airship! An airship! Cheered Lyran. Looks like she has seen it before. So that's the airship of this word? I have heard it from Fei before, but it looks a bit different than a ship. Recalling the specifics of the discussion, he rubbed his chin, a bit baffled by this thing. Actually, it's not just the fact that its design differed from ships, the fact that it could fly definitely qualifies it as not a ship. It slowly descended onto the ground. At the point of landing, the people scattered like their lives depend on it, because it does, otherwise they will be turned into meat pies. Finally the thing descended. Actually the Ross says floating vessel, but I like the word airship. I imagine it to be something that looks a bit like the airships in early Final Fantasy works. Because it had a large volume, it took up about 25% of the plaza. When it stopped there on the plaza, the people there felt like sardines. With arms behind his back, the old dude stood at the front most of the ship like a scene straight out from some Xiangxia novels. He tagged him as a poser inside his mind. The old dude laughed and nodded in satisfaction when he saw the amount of turnouts. Everyone, Ia.s.sum you're all here to go treasure hunting as well? Let the old me say upfront how we welcome you all and how we wish we can cooperate together, and lastly G.O. Speed in the journey ahead of us so that we may all come out with gains. Now, before the main event we have something to say. Normally I wouldn't get the chance to do this seeing as there's a lot of strong ones on PAR with me here and some supers sent from esteemed families. However, since we took the trouble of organizing this round of expedition, please let me be as bold as to show off once more. Listening to the old dude babbling on and on, he felt speechless. Why does the guy talk so much knowing that there's tons of people here who's the same tier as him who are clearly getting more and more impatient? And yet he beats around the bush. This is the real show off, yes? Does he want to be heckled? Surveying the map and the surrounding mountain ranges, Mikoto and Wu Yan raised their eyebrow. What's the matter? Seeing their reaction, Hinajiku asked. Oh, it's nothing. Pas. The map over to Mikoto, he lifted his head. I was just thinking, why would a place in the middle of nowhere be hiding a big treasure? Maybe it's because that's the perfect place to hide a treasure? In the middle of nowhere, since N.O. Body would go out of their way to search for a treasure in that kind of place, isn't it? Well, you do have a point there. He nodded and Hinajiku turned to Mikoto. What are you looking at? Nothing in particular, but I am thinking about something. You see, this mountain range don't really have any town, not even a village. You're right. Surveying the surrounding only to find chains of mountain ranges, he concurred. What's your thoughts on this matter? Scrolling it up, she said it back to him while donning a serious expression. I was thinking if something big were to happen here, N.O. Body would know for sure what transpired here, wouldn't they? They tacitly understood her. Feeling the heavy atmosphere, he beamed. Ma, come what may, if we keep deliberating on this matter it would only lead to a lysis paralysis. Have you forgotten? We are going to YOLO this. The two exchanged glance and smiled synchronously. That's right, the brave takes all. While they are talking, the old dude finally got to the main points. Because the journey is a bit far, we have decided to prepare an airship. If this inconveniences someone, then we deeply apologize. He's just speaking lines for formality's sake, but the old dude didn't expect the female magicians below to give him the evil eye. He really can't fathom why they would stare so hard at him. Seeing his reaction, Wu Yan almost burst out in laughter. The two girls are also giving him their unamused look. If looks could kill, the old dude would probably be dead a few hundred times by now. He's starting to suspect that the old guy did this on purpose. Why else is he issuing an apology? This is more like rubbing salt on the girl's wounds. Still mystified, the old dude carried on. All aboard, next stop the mountain ranges. Wu Yan turned to the girls. Let's go. Chapter 79. When Wu Yan and company boarded the deck, Akero stopped for an instant and her iris changed from indigo to deep red and back in a blink of the eye. It happened so fast it's like nothing happened and all is but an illusion. Wu Yan noticed the instant she stopped and he turned his head back. What's the matter? Akeros. Lifting her head, she answered. Master, there are life forms with significant danger rating. Dangerous life forms. They exchanged glance and Mikoto walked over to her side. Akeros. Pulling at her clothes to get her attention, she asked her. What you mean is that you detected strong individuals on this airship, is that correct? Yes. She returned her gaze on Wu Yan. The manner with which she does this, one would think that if she didn't see him for even a second she's afraid he would disappear. Akeros, how strong is the individuals you detected? He whispered by her ears. She still has her sights on him as he said this. She stopped for a bit before continuing. Quantity I.Ti, 3, strength, A, danger, unascertained, recommending master to give dispatch command. Twitch his eyelids, he hurriedly stopped her. I think it's best not to act rashly, we will keep an eye for any change for now. Yes, master. After she went back into expressionless mode, Mikoto and Hinajiku asked him. The number is 3, that's clear, but what did she mean when she gave her judgments on strength and danger? I see, in her settings, strength within a rating means they're on the same tier as her, that is to say in this airship there's 3 tier 8. He said with a serious expression. The tier 8 have finally made their appearances. She exclaimed, tier 8, that's her goal for now, with the strength she has now their existences she looks up to. I thought there were some miscalculations when we didn't see any tier 8, but it seems they were hiding. She said after a fruitless scan of the airship. He grinned. Well, that's understandable, they're tier 8, the ace in the hole the auction firm has managed to round up for a treasure hunt. Being tier 8, why would they want to stand together with everyone else on the plaza? 3 tier 8 huh, Akaros, do you know their specific level? Mikoto grumbled before asking her. Shrinking her pupils without changing the color of her iris, she scanned the surrounding before reporting to them. Undefined, specific strength cannot be identified, scanning for position, no coordinates at the moment. Stop it, Akaros, if you can't find them then don't. They will appear sooner or later. He said while grinning and rubbing her forehead. Turning to look at him, she stared blankly before responding. Humph! Protested the 2 jelly wafers. Beaming, he regrettably retracted his hand. The airship floated up while they are engrossed in conversation. Stopping in midair, the airship spun around, probably to determine their direction. It then adjusted itself and set sail towards the south. This is incredible, it's my first time in an airship. She's standing tiptoe in curiosity. Actually, this is my first time as well. He said wryly, laughing while carrying Lyran, who jumped into his arms from G.O.D knows when. That's a given, I have never seen a ship floating in the air before, well, except for a certain ship that reports weather daily, and you being from a more technologically behind civilization couldn't possibly have seen it either. Speechless, what she said is correct, his scientific world could only be described as so relative to Mikoto's world, who are 30 years into the future. Seeing as he's not going to say anything, a bit unamused, she looked away. And, what's next? Should we wait until we arrive, or do we go find the 3 tier 8 right now? He pondered a bit before responding. No, there's no need for an assertive stance. If we alarm the snake in the bush, we would only draw unnecessary attention to ourselves. I think they are already aware of our presence. No. A bit bewildered, she asked him. Since Akaros could detect them, then being on the same tier, the 3 individuals should be able to notice her strength even if they could not determine her exact strength, isn't it? You're wrong this time. He rejected her notions with a hand wave. Wrong. Raising her eyebrows, she pursued him. In what way? Eyeing Akaros by his side, he smiled. Akaros can detect them because she has the scanning function in her system, that's why she could notice their presence. Retorted Mikoto. Even if she has very good perception, on why are you so sure they couldn't do the same? No, I can definitely say they didn't notice us. Basis being. He explained while bitterly laughing. You don't know this, but the native of this world are split either into dochi or magic, inside them exist either mana or dochi. According to what I know, the native cultivators of this world detect presence by means of this dochi and magic that exist within people. I see. She understood after he put it this way. She hammered her palm with her fist. They can't detect us who don't have any magic or dochi. Right on. Giving her the carrot, he grinned. We can't generalize yet, since we don't know if they might be special methods of perception on this world. However, one thing is for certain. What? Even if they notice us, they absolutely can't tell our strength. He confidently pointed out. We don't cultivate dochi or mana, how would they know how strong we are? They can't gauge our strength using system like us. Well, for the time being you do have a bit of good judgment in that head of yours. Dam.nu Tsundara. Observing the clouds as they flow past.s, he noticed something off. Mikoto, Don't you think something is missing? It felt very upsetting, it's like he let something slip by him. Startled by his perplexed expression, she also recalled she's forgetting something as well. Musing, she continued. Since you cited it like that, I do feel like compared to the usual times we are lacking something. As the two lost themselves in their introspective meditation, Lyran, who's still in his arms, tugged at his neck. Brother, are you guys looking for Sis Hinajiku? Oh yes, Hinajiku. The two instantly realized. It feels like it has been a while since they heard his voice. It was some time they started this conversation. Where is she? Mikoto looked around, but she can't find any trace of her. Over there. Lyran pointed at a pale white Hinajiku who had black lines running down her forehead. She's currently sitting in a reverse 8 figure, TL, try finding this shape in the following picture. Found this after I typed Ana no Keozuwari, sitting like a girl. What happened to her? Looking at her pitiful display, Mikoto gasped. Ugh. Slapping his forehead, he moaned. I almost forgot. Kaiko-sama has acrophobia. Chapter 80. To Kaiko-sama the short journey might as well have been a year-long journey. Meanwhile, others could chat the time away. Although one must marvel at how fast the airship could move, it is really astounding. It's not as fast as an airplane though, otherwise the people on board would have been blown away to G.O.D knows where. It is still a ship in the end. Now what does one mean by it being fast then? That's because from time to time it becomes enveloped by some magic formation. Going into it, from the perspectives of onlooker, they will only feel slightly disorientated and then poof, a complete change of scenery. Yes, you guessed it, those magic formations are S.P.A.C.E displacement magic formation, more commonly known as teleportation circles. How F.U.C. King big is Silveria? Well, no one knows for sure, no one has seen the edge of this world, so how would they know how wide it is? Wu Yan has only been here for no more than a few months, but he has heard from the system on how big this world is. According to it, it's 10 times bigger than Earth. TL, now some of you might be wondering how big. The RA does not specify whether it's 10x Earth's diameter or ma.s.s, for the purpose of the story let's just it's slightly smaller than Yo Mama. In this huge A.S.S world, the airship is the fastest transportation vehicle, not because of its speed per se but because of this teleportation circles. Fixed in the sky, these formations goes way back in time on the pages of Silveria's history. It was built by the gargantuan spending of resources by big A.S.S factions, all for the purpose of making traveling to places that much more expedient. Normally, the formations are hidden away. Even if someone were to fly past it, they wouldn't react at all. Built on the airships are tiny activation formations. Once the airships make contact with the teleportation circles, the activation circle will trigger the hidden circles and summon it out for the purpose of sending people far, far away. Thus only airships are able to use these teleportation formations. Suppose Wu Yan's is going to their destination by his own world's airplane. From their departure point to the arrival destination it would still take it 3 days and 3 nights even on its fastest speed. With the help of airships and teleportation circles, these long distances can be traversed in mere 2 or 3 hours. When the airship said through another formation, the old dude appeared and told everyone, they have arrived. What appeared before them is a normal mountain range. It's not that tall, not that short, not that long or short, it's truly average in every sense of the word. When they saw the mountain range, everyone on board were thinking the same thing. Does this place really have any treasure hidden within it? Wu Yan and company thought the same thing. Everyone, we are now making the descent, please make your preparations. The airship slowed down and slowly descended upon a mountain top. People poured out from the airship. They didn't go out in any orderly fashion, the various organizations mobilized as they see fit. It's fortunate that the place could still pass as being called wide, otherwise it would be hard to imagine these people squeezing against each other in a tight S.P.A.C. Are you feeling better? Akaros carried down a certain object, she then dumped the lump of stardust in her hands down in an inconspicuous spot. Hinagiku is still feeling weak in her knees and barely could stand up. When she got dumped she plopped down on the floor with Lyran in her arms. Heaving and panting, Mikoto got close to her to alleviate her discomfort. Wu Yan? He's busy enjoying some good old schadenfreude while feeling helpless alongside an expressionless Akaros. I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me now, please don't worry. She forced herself when she saw Lyran and Mikoto being all worried for her. Forcing a few laugh while being pale, at least this place is much better than being on the airship. About the same time as the last of the search party got down from the airship, she managed to recover her vitality somewhat. Those who have the map jotted down must know the journey, I presume. Those without one, please follow us. Let's go, everyone. Maybe it's because they're finally down to business since they're at the treasure's hideout, the old dude didn't bother dilly-dallying. Once he sees that everyone has made their way down from the ship, he commenced the search after everyone has got into position. And so, big and small, a variety of groups started moving towards the location of the treasure. It's about time we move as well. Patting her on the back, he turned to everyone after she nodded. This is the place. Looking at the barren place, Mikoto felt depressed and at the same time a bit puzzled. They saw the treasure map, ignoring the rule breaker with impeccable memory. Kaiko-sama could remember bits of the map, what's more to say for Mikoto, who's number 3 in Academy City. This is the place, she is sure of it. Problem is, there's nothing here, not a treasure, not even a tree. Seeing this, anyone would feel gloomy, and if their temper isn't that good to begin with, they might be snapping at this moment. In an instant the big party made an uproar. One could hear questioning and furious shouts here and there. Some have even made their way towards the auction firm personnel to deal out some justice. This group of people have already started bickering with the auction firm. The old dude leading them seemed to have explained something to the crowd and went on ahead, continuing on their journey. Bewildered and dejected as they are, they can only carry on in a half-suspecting, half-believing fashion as they followed the auction people. This went on until a stone plaque appeared before them. The same line, but without the gloom. All one could sense from her tone is doubtfulness. It seems so. Nodding, he curled his lip in the direction of the old dude. See, that old fart seems to be making some new movements. They looked at the old dude, who walked to the front of the stone plaque, and then his group surrounded the stone plaque. Placing his hands on the stone plaque, the people behind him did the same thing with his back as well. They got into a tight formation, covering each other's shoulders and backs. At that moment, everyone saw it. The moment he touched the stone plaque, a light emerged from the point of contact and engulfed him, turning him into what appears to be a shining man. Along with the people in contact with him, the group got engulfed in light. And in a blink of an eye, the auction group disappeared while still shining. They disappeared, said a stunned Hinagiku. Everyone else had the same expression as well, except the people who fought with the auction firm before. They looked like they expected this to happen and mimicked the auction firm's action, and so disappeared as well. Unquestionably, the stone plaque serves as an entry point of sorts to send people towards the location of the treasure. The three exchanged glance and they understood each other's intention. More and more people got sent towards the place, and the place started to become more and more s.p.a.sias. As time moved along, only those timid and highly suspicious remained. Most of the other guys are just about gone. We going, Yan? Hinagiku, Mikoto, and Lyran looked at him. Akaros didn't move her gaze from start to finish, so go figure. He thought for a while under the questioning sights before finally nodding and making their way over to the plaque. Before they are sent away, he took a sneaky peek at a certain direction. The three dangerous life forms referred to by Akaros. Chapter 81. When Wu Yan and company recovered their senses, they discovered that they are now standing upon a stone ground with nary a person in sight. Wu Yan scanned the area as if this is within his prediction before sighing out loud. Knew it, the matter really weren't as simple as they are made out to be. Hinajika walked around and glossed her yellowish-green eyes over the place. She didn't see anything that is particularly interesting, the place has nothing but stones. Wandering around a bit more, she spoke out. Where are the others? Why are they all gone? Mikoto and him are startled by this as well. That's right, why is it only us? Maybe the location of teleportation varies depending on the timing of touching the stone plaque. Observing this stony place that can't possibly hold more than 10,000 people, he rubbed his chin. There's no way else to go, where are we supposed to head to? Said a frowning Hinajiku. Don't tell me you're duped by the auction firm, right? Electricity arced around her. She's not a very patient person in the first place. He dismissed her suspicion with a wave of his hand. No, that's impossible, maybe if it's just us the possibility would be high. But we came here with a lot of other groups, and within those groups there are many that comes from big backgrounds. Then what's going on? There's no place to go, do we have to pave our own road? Squinching her eyes, bluish-white lightning flashed. Let's open up a path then. What can he do but twitch his lip at the sight of railgun spouting some dangerous line? Looks like there's no other way out of here anyway, he sighed and acquiesced. We don't have any other alternatives, let's try it. Should have done this in the first place. Lightning churned around her as she grinned. With a wave, countless lightning shot out from her and gathered in her palm, forming into a ball of bluish-white lightning. Randomly choosing a direction, she fired. Bam! At the point of impact, the stone wall shattered with a loud boom and is subsequently covered by dust. The raging electricity around her died down. She brushed her bangs gallantly as she looked on at the destruction she caused. Looking at her, he could tell the LAS.S is very happy at being able to fire the attack. As expected, railgun is a dangerous one, a non-violent one is not railgun. When the dust finally settled, a black revealed itself in front of everyone. Heh. A certain scientific railgun is very pleased with herself. See? You must pave your own path instead of following others. Not just him, even Hinajiku and Lyran don't know what to say to her, and they just exchanged glances. She said when she saw the stone wall. Look. Turning over to look at it, what happened surprised them. The wall that has a hole blown into it is regenerating like it has a life all its own. The surrounding stone wall trembled, and one could that the wall is getting repaired at a speed that is observable by the eyes, and soon the hole disappeared. This. Mikoto gasped at the regenerated stone wall. It couldn't be, a wall monster again. I wish that was the case. Said Wu Yan with bitter laughs after he looked over the brand new wall. If it were another wall monster, then we can just do away with them. However, the wall before us shows no level display, and therefore it is not a monster, it's definitely a normal wall. Normal? It's a growing wall, where's the normal in that? Maybe her jimmies were rustled after her attack failed, but she threw a really good tsukumai there. It didn't matter though, railgun snapped. Biribiri. With a lightning orb within her hand and lightning raging around her, she looked at the wall before speaking in a cold tone. I don't believe. Fwam! She threw the lightning orb outwards in a violent fashion, slamming the wall with a boom. The attack this time is clearly stronger than the last one. Another explosion rang and dust flew again. The wall didn't regenerate, it flat out no-sell her attack. He quickly stopped her when she whipped out a coin and took her railgun position. Forget it, Mikoto, even if you attack again it will just grow back. Let's try to search for some clues before taking action again. She reluctantly withdrew, but not before staring at the stone wall like it's her sworn enemy and clenching her teeth. Stupid wall, despicable wall. Hinajiku tapped her forehead in frustration. Attacks are useless and there's no way to go. What do we do now? He thought for a while, but no good ideas came. Akaros didn't stop calculating from the start, and it seemed she has come upon something when she stopped the complicated formulas and tugged at his shirt. She pointed at a certain direction before continuing. Master, there seems to be some words over there. Words. Before Wu Yan reacted, Mikoto ran over there with Hinagiku and by extension Liren in tow. He yelled after them before piping down and guiding Ikaros towards them. He didn't notice that when he pulled her hand, Ikaros blinked a bit when she saw their hands joined together. She mumbled while putting her empty hand to her chest. Strange feeling. Destroy the place in an instant and the exit will appear. Wu Yan and company exchanged sights. In an instant. Spreading her arms wide as if she's embracing the stone S.P.A.ce, she forced a laugh. Destroy this place. One can't blame her though, this place is not that big, but it's a pretty tall order to destroy this place in an instant. At least she didn't think she could do it. She's not the only one, Wu Yan is also having the same thought. Destroying the walls are simple in and of itself, but to destroy this place in an instant would be a daydreamer's babbling. At his tier this is still something he is incapable of. Plus he only have one AoE skill at his disposal, even then that skill is ineffective here. Surveying the surrounding, Mikoto bitterly laughed. The railgun has a high penetrative power, but it can't be used for wide area attacks. Also, the coordinates of this place is still an unknown, so I can't call lightning down on this place. He doesn't have high hopes for her anyway. He knows her limits after all. Frustrating as the whole matter is, she doesn't have any wide area high impact abilities at her disposal. She did have the ability to call lightning down from the sky, but this place looked like some secret room or something. Who knows if they are under a sky or not? If it's not under the sky, she can't use it. This place looks very isolated as well, so it's hard to tell if she's able to properly feel the M within the clouds. All hope is not lost, however, as he turned to Ikaros. She's part of the reason why he's not freaking out. If it's Ikaros can't dish out wide-scale punishment, then she wouldn't be Ikaros. She's a queen of the battlefield, you see. Ikaros, can you do it? She lifted her head and revealed a pair of expressionless eyes. The others, however, could feel something different. They could feel the pressure slowly pouring out of her. Although she didn't answer him, he already knows the answer. I will be counting on you, Ikaros. Yes. Master. Chapter 82. TL. The chap T.I.tle is actually a reference to the AoE attacks in Super Robot War that doesn't use conventional robo-to-robo aim but AoE mode or something like that. Waiting for clarification by those familiar with the matter, in the comments section. Ikaros walked in front of them as Wu Yan and company looked on. At the same time her body released a dazzling light. Transformative wing system restriction, release. It's not a soft and mellow voice anymore, rather it's a mechanical tone. Still shining, her homely dress slowly receded. A white armor slowly materialized, covering her body. Spreading her pink wings, everyone's field of vision are instantly blurred by the sheer amount of feathers. Her pink wings started turning a faint blue sheen, and as they folded upon themselves they turned into sleek wings of light fluttering ever so softly behind her back. Sky Queen mode. On. Her indigo eyes turned into deep red and a light halo floated above her head. And her hair, it started to expand and dance around. This series of transformation took place in a mere second, and yet right now Hinagiku, Mikoto and Liren and him has become entranced. Now if one were to say Ikaros is a simple, pretty G.O.D sensane angel, then right now one would describe her as an enraged G.O.Dis descending to give judgment upon foolish mortals. Voila, this be the true form of the versatile, strategic angeloid crowned as Ura.N.U.S, Queen of Sky. They could feel it, the pressure that keeps coming off of her. That's the aura of a strong one. Mikoto felt tiny as an ant in front of her. Such is the gap between tier 7 and 8. It didn't matter what they felt, Ikaros can't read them anyway. What she does know is that her master told her to demolish this place. Her wings didn't move at all, but she flew up into the air and came to the center of this place. Artemis. The sound looked like they came from somewhere far, far away, but as it fell countless missiles appeared around her wings of light. Under her control, her light wings swung and the missiles flew. Boom beata boom. The omnidirection salvo wrecked everywhere, leaving a series of booms. The poor wall didn't even have a wreckage to bury, as none of it survived the onslaught. "Wia!" shouted the three girls when the resulting tremor shook them left and right, throwing them constantly off their balance. Tensing up his face, he grabbed the three slender figure into his chest. Sure, his face looked serious enough, but inside, as if I will let this chance pass, lol. They didn't know why her salvo didn't reach them in the slightest, but this didn't stop the demolition of the place at all. When the affair is done, every wall in the place got turned into bits smaller than even a marble. Where they stood, the ground has already shattered in the aftermath. My kidney. He stepped on a wrong footing, and as the ground parted he slipped and saw the big black hole that opened up and fell down, but not before nearly getting heart attack. "Aa!" yelled the three girls plus Wu Yan as they fell. "Master!" Akaros moved her wings and shot down to their aid. In an instant he appeared behind and grabbed him. "Looks like they have managed to escape a tragic demise. F.U.C.Kme. Cussed the C.U.N.T as he looked down. Oh no, don't misunderstand, he's still cussing deep inside, cursing from mother to grandmother. I was thinking why this G.O.D forsaken place hiding a treasure would be so kind as to remind people, it's a trap. And a big one at that. If not for Akaros we might really have died there." Tightening up his hold on Hinagiku and Mikoto to prevent any accidents, he gulped while feeling glad for having dodged a close one. Just a reminder, but this is a place where someone hid their treasures. Why would it show them the direction? It's only natural for there to be a trap. "This is too high, isn't it?" the bold railgun said while feeling chill run up her back with Lyran in her arms. Little ol Lyran on the other hand isn't so scared anymore, aside from the few yelps before. In fact, the girl is mumbling incessantly at their situation with much zest. "Hinagiku." She passed out with upturned eyes. "Let it be known once more that Kaiko-sama is acrophobic. She's acrophobic. Because it's very important, it has to be emphasized twice. Thanks, Akaros." He thanked her while trying to calm down his thumping heart. "Thanks, Akaros, sis Akaros." Akaros didn't seem like she regained her senses. He knows, however, that she's just now sure what to do when someone else thanks her. This kind of common situation is a first for the engineered weapon. He resolved once again to make sure he protects this angelic girl. At this point it's up to debate who's protecting who. As for the future, he can't say for sure that he can Serpa.S her, even if he is the MC, author, self-proclaimed. Within her world she's the main heroine, is she not? Against their grat.I.tude, she can do nothing but look at a loss of what to do. But, her eyes had an imperceptible glint to them as she muttered yes and then stayed silent. "Hinagiku, you alright?" Mikoto blushed when she realized she's currently within his arms, but when she saw Hinagiku over at her side showing the white of her eyes, she didn't feel like it anymore. "I think she's alright, probably," said a lip-twitching and speechless Wu Yan. "So what do we do now?" Mikoto asked when she looked down at the black pit below them. "What else? We can't go up and we can't give up after just a little stumble, then we can only go down." When he recalled the result of following the smuck bait, he felt very irritated and B.U.T.3rd. He felt like skinning the mastermind behind this trap alive. Let it be known that he has very little patience for jokes, especially with him receiving the short end of it. "Let's go with that then." Sighing, she glanced at Lyran, who still bri.m.m.i.n.g with energy as she elatedly looked down. She admired her guts at being able to stare down from such a height. "Let's make our descent quickly then, otherwise if Hinagiku wakes up I'm afraid she might faint again," retorted him with Mikoto wryly laughing and Lyran giggling. "Let's go down, Akaros." "Yes, master." Akaro's eyes already turned back to their indigo color with her wings a beautiful pink and halo gone. Her hair also softened up again, what's left of her previous appearance is the white armor from before. By the way, he's silently enjoying the feeling of having two buns pressing against his back. It's a waste to stay in her Sky Queen mode when she can perfectly fly in her normal mode. And so under Akaro's aid they descended. Glancing at Mikoto who is constantly gulping and Lil Lyran who didn't mind the situation at all. He peeked at the swirly-eyed Hinagiku on the other side. Suddenly he had a bright idea. Why not take advantage of Kaiko-sama in her present state and score some touchdown points? This is a very serious question to deliberate over. Chapter 83. Having lived the life of a troll, it's not the first time Wu Yan's on the receiving end of getting trolled. Logically speaking, therefore he should be adept at dealing with this kind of holes. Oh, how naive he was. He's not sure what amount of time has said, but judging from his arms that is on the verge of going limp from hugging the girls, one could tell it is definitely not a short time. And yet, there's still nothing but a dark abyss in his line of sight. Like a bottomless pit, it's not that big a hole, but it's bone-chilling how deep this thing is. They have flew for so long and still no ground in sight. Just when Mikoto is about to complain, he saw something that brightened up his eyes. Akaro's. Stop for a bit. Akaro's brake suddenly and steadily halted with a whip of her wings. What's with you stopping so suddenly like that? Rubbing her forehead in irritation, she looked at him in a displeased manner. The sudden break just now made her knock into his jaw. What she didn't think about is who really got hurt more in that collision. Look at the walls. The boring unchanging walls are now filled with countless holes like that of a beehive's. Each of the caves had the exact same size. Drafts blew from the countless holes out into the giant pit. One couldn't tell what's the wind direction either. The winds are all blowing in a strange and abnormal manner. It's weird how one could see the wind and yet not feel it. The scene made them very befuddled, that's for sure. Looking at the countless caves and subsequently feeling bedazzled with the sheer amount, Mikoto looked away and grumbled silently. So many caves, which one are we going into? When he heard Mikoto, he turned to Akaro's. Akaro's, and you please scan the structures for any special markers or unique differences. She instantly switched to Sky Queen mode and used her deep red eyes to scan over the place. Results of the scan revealed a 99% similarity with negligible variance. In other words, they're all the same. His head started hurting from the implications. If Akaro's can't do it, there's not much he can do about it. The same applies to Mikoto. Hinagiku moaned in his chest. Noticing this, he reckons it's probably the sign of her awakening. She would surely faint again if she were to wake up when they're still in this state. He decided straight away. Screw it, let's try randomly entering one. Mikoto and Lyran concurred with this decision. Being hugged for such a long period would make anyone feel uncomfortable. At this rate, they wouldn't know how long they would be descending, and waiting is not an option either. Akaro's glanced over the available options and chose the closest one to fly to. When they landed, Mikoto and Wu Yan breathed a sigh of relief and Hinagiku woke up just in time. Both of you, what's with the look? Being observed by people, the bossy Kaiko-sama felt a bit disturbed by them. Oh right, just now. Just now nothing happened. It's best if you don't try to recall it, Hinagiku. Understanding her acrophobic attribute, he tried to assure her. Ignoring the giggling Mikoto and Lyran as well as Hinagiku who had question marks floating above her head, he stood up and looked around the cave. As usual, everything's made of stone and there's nothing particular to note. Rubbing his palm, he continued. Let's delve deeper. Lady Luck, be courteous, perhaps we might chance upon an exit. Since they're going through the trouble of creating a map, why didn't they do proper annotation on the situation of the treasure? Whined Mikoto. Wu Yan and company didn't say anything, they only wryly smiled. Barging into other people's treasure hiding place, getting lost and then blaming the master of the treasure for something like that, what can one say? She's an interesting one. And so they set forth once more. It's fortunate that they aren't any traps that are of the same magnitude as the one before, for one, they aren't walking in some seemingly endless path, they came out of the other side of the cave in a jiffy. Rather than came out, it's more like they found the exit. 3. Teleportation circles appeared. Exchanging glances, Wu Yan and company walked over to inspect the circles. So, which one? Said Mikoto while fiddling with her hair. This 3 circles look exactly the same, how do we choose one from them? She said after making a conclusion that they are identical. Looking over the 3 magic formations again, he helplessly resorted to the same method they employed before. Well, they do look the same, why not we randomly choose one like before? Let's go with that. The group sighed in unison. They all had second thoughts that maybe coming to this place just isn't worth the trouble. Stepping on the circle, it lit up and sent them away. They are in for a surprise when they saw what appeared before them. This. Subconsciously taking a few steps back, Mikoto went pale and Hinajiku took Lyran into her arms to cover her vision. She closed her eyes as well as she can't take a look at the place. He on the other hand has a stern face on. What they are seeing is a place littered with dead bodies. Dead bodies everywhere. They are all the bodies of the treasure hunting group. Among the littered bodies there are those that are pincushioned by stone spikes with their blood flowing into streams. And then there are those staked to the wall, even those with head shot turning into meaty chunks. It's an understatement to say their bodies were not in one piece. Against the scene from H.E.L.L, except for Ikaros and Lyran who is in Hinajiku's arms, the trio can't help gasping. Even the air had a tinge of iron smell, that of a slaughterhouse. The casualty here is about 70% of the turnout this time. What went down here? Why are they all like this? It's not the first time they have seen blood, but they still can't regain their senses fully. These people were still alive when they came here, rid the same airship, went into the stash out place. And now, these people are dead. They can't deal with the reality, not with their kind hearts. They are clenching down on their lips so hard it looks like if they were to put more strength into them then their lips might just get cut. Why so many of them died? What the H.E.L.L did they come upon? Grasping his fist, his face looked anxious. It's not a lack of guts, rather it's the fear of the unknown. Before he could determine their cause of death, even he would feel uneasy. Ka-ka-ka. The sound came as if something is breaking apart. It was faint in the beginning, but as time said the sound became louder and louder before finally turning into a complete clutter of sounds. What is this noise? At a place where there are countless bodies and a ground that could only be described as the river of blood, a sudden abnormal sound came. Anyone would be a little bit afraid, what more to say of the girls? Hinajiku and Mikoto huddled close to him. They were practically cuddling up to him. They are looking around trying to locate the source of that sound. He's a bit hard pressed, but he has some experience for stuff like this. What's more, he's a man. If he can't be a proper pillar of support at times like this, then he wouldn't be fit to be called a man. He took the vanguard in front of the 2 girls and brought out Nitano no Shana. Grabbing the hilt, he kept the sword at his waist. Hinajiku, Mikoto, don't stray too far from me, we will act according to the situation, the little girl's protection is priority number 1. Ikaros, cover Mikoto and Hinajiku. Understood. It appeared. The source of the sound. Chapter 84. The rocks they overlooked before started shaking. The surface of the stones cracked after a bunch of caca sounds. Wu Yan covered the girls and backpedaled. He kept his eyes on the stones, drawing out a part of his sword. The stones stopped making caca sounds in their place. They believe this isn't over just yet. And sure enough, the sound has stopped, but the stones, they are still trembling. Mikoto had a hunch that something bad is going to happen. She calmed down very soon after as she shouted, "Something is coming." When her sound fell, a dull thud rang and they saw it. A spider. A spider made of stone bigger than your average kid. Each and every one of the trembling stone exploded after a few thuds. And similar to the one before, a spider crawled out in creepy manner like the F.U.C. King creepy crawl eyes they are. The two girls gulped when they saw the spider showed its face. Had they not seen monster fugalier than them they would have surely screamed in pure terror. The fugalies kept coming as a series of dull thuds rang, it's like a freaking firecracker, going pilipara. Mini me stone spider, level 30. Not so many me stone spider, level 35. Big definitely not so many me spider, level 40. AF.U.C. King legion of them all organized into ranks. Just the stone spider's mini version are already several dozen times the size of your average spider. And then the normal stone spider that is bigger than the mini-me and then the big nope stone spider bigger than a child. This should be the reason for the deaths. When they saw the spiders, Hinagiku and Mikoto weren't so scared anymore. They were more afraid of unknown, and now that they know what they're up against the initial fear has somewhat diminished. Being girls they are afraid of creeping crawl eyes, but it's just to the extent of being disgusted by them when fighting, nothing more. Looks like the experience of fighting against yokai army has contributed much in this matter. Without waiting for orders, Akaros took the lead. Her deep red eyes are on now, she scanned over the stone spiders and reported to him in a soft tone. Unknown life form detected, animosity detected, strength, D, danger, C, a material danger to master exist, therefore proceeding to extermination. Variable wing restriction, release. Ura.N.U.S Queen mode, on. Her blue wings unfurled, the dominating queen of the sky has descended once more before them. Facing the stone spiders, back against them, one could hear her emotionless voice. Master, I'm attacking now, Master please retreat to a safe area. Hearing her, he stopped before laughing in an odd manner. Disregarding her advice he walked to her side under her puzzled gaze. He caressed her hair that is currently fluttering after entering Ura.N.U.S Queen mode. Akaros, the me that is your master is not just your master you see. Surprising her, he continued walking and came to her front before lifting Nitano no Shana and laughing. I'm not some normal powerless chicken, I can fight, and Akaros you best remember this, I'm not just your master, I'm your partner in life and death as well as the battlefield. And since we're talking about life and death, on a battlefield, how can I back down to let you go rushing into the fray by yourself like that? Her eyes wavered at the sight of her master's back as she lowered her head. Understanding, impossible. If you can't understand, it's fine as well, just keep my words in your mind, one day you will understand. Silently muttering his words a few times she continued. Yes. Master. Don't forget about us. Shouted the two that melted into the background, making their presences known. Mikoto shot like an arrow to his side, clearly very unamused. Saying stuff like fighting side by side, but you forgot all about us. Knowing the jig is up he felt awkward and tried to cover S.H.I.T up. Mama, don't mind the details. Oh, so our existences are just minor details. Mikoto said with lightning flashes around her. Alright, that's enough out of you guys. Here they come. Reminded Hinagiku when she saw the two starting to squabble like N.O. Body is looking at them. While they are conversing the spiders moved their long legs and got ever closer to them. It looks like they are raising their guards against these unconventional foes unlike the small fries they wrecked before. Mikoto, Hinagiku, make sure you protect the little one. Noticing the encroaching enemies, he got serious. The enemy this time is on another scale altogether from quant.I.Ti and quality, of course he can't be too careless. He's not as afraid as he was before when facing the yokai enemy. The enemy may be stronger this time but his side isn't any weaker either. At that time he was only level 30, and now, even Hinagiku is level 35. Lyran might be a liability to them but it's negligible because they have a war G.O.Dis at their side. Hinajiku, don't stray too far and make sure you protect the little las.s, okay? Mikato, don't give me any of that rushing C.R.A.P, stay by Hinajiku's side and take action as you deem fit. The two nodded to signify their understanding. The simple-minded stone spiders started to become impatient when they see that Wu Yan and company aren't going to take a move anytime soon. They opened their mouths wide and shot stone spikes at them. Aegis. She appeared in front of them in an instant and a translucent, green barrier appeared to protect them after she moved her vermilion lips. The spikes. H.I.T. The barrier to no effect. Rather than piercing it, they stopped after a dull thud. He could tell the defensive power of the C-grade equipment is clearly above his conceptual dragon armor. However, one of the pros of dragon armor is that it's passive and automatic. He doesn't have to control it every single moment. In case he can't react in time, the armor would still deploy, unlike Aegis, which requires a Kairos to consciously deploy. It's all pros and cons anyway. She stored away the barrier and deployed the homing missiles. Opening metaphoric cans of Hoopa.S on each and every one of them fugalies, blasting them to pieces. Chapter 85. Ridiculous firepower. Ridiculous AoE range. Wu Yan can feel his heart thumping time after time he sees this sight. As expected of a strategic angeloid, the strongest queen of sky. Rubble, that's what remains of the stone spiders after a round of Ikaro's salvo. He's starting to wonder what's the nature of this creature, is it a spider or just stone? They keep coming in waves, replacing any fallen allies by stepping over their bodies as well as the bodies of the treasure hunting group. Focusing his eyes, he charged at the oncoming Zerg rush. Their distance rapidly closing with each pass.sing second, in but a moment they are going to make contact with each other. Sending a big spider flying, a few spider and mini-me in the way jumped and shot stone spikes at him with their mouth opened wide. Drawing Nitano no Shana in a silver flash, he smashed the stone spikes to bits while also slicing the fugalies into two when they lunged at him. He felt something stir judging from the wind movements behind him, but he couldn't recover his stance in time, not when he just slew some spiders. In just the nick of time he turned and a black sword destroyed the stone spiders ambushing him without leaving a trace. His originally empty left hand is now equipped with a black katana. It's jet black, and if one were to inspect closer they would find that it is vibrating at an extremely high frequency. This blade made with psychic power feels very nice in his hands. Speaking from its sharpness alone, one would find that it is not lesser than a mainstream armament, if not better. Dual wielding, he slashed apart two other spiders before diving straight into the spider group. Hacking his way through the crowd, he slew the spiders in flock. Kendo Master, this ability encompass said dual wielding swords as well. If not for the fact that this blade of black iron sand could perform on par with a mainstream armament and could be reproduced at his convenience, he would not have sold the Kusanagi sword. Tisk, having so much fun using other people's ability. Grumbled Mikato, who's on Lyran protection duty. Any stone spiders that came got demolished by lightning and thunderbolts. She was worried that since the spiders are made of stone her lightning attacks wouldn't work, and it turns out the spider did indeed have some resistance. But her LV5 magnitude lightning managed to overcome that resistance. She curled her lips when she saw Wu Yan having the time of his life, hacking and slashing through the spider crowd with Nitano no Shana and Iron Sand Sword. She's just jelly about a certain B.A.S.T.A.R.D's luck. She used a few years herself to rise to LV4. Unlike him, who could mimic other people's years of effort with a freaking card. To add salt to her wound, he used it with such depth that the Iron Sand Sword seems more effective in his hand than hers. If it were not him but someone else, she might have challenged the guy to a duel. Yan's handling of the blade is refined, isn't it? Said Hinajiku, who's pretty close to Mikato, as she cut down a mini-me spider with Shiro Sakura. One could really see from this act that her strength has grown since the Yakai Cave event, and by several times at that. H.E.L.L even stronger than the Wu Yan then. She reckons that her skills are not yet at his level. It's hard to compare them since he got it through Kendo Master, which is the quintessence of those who walked the path to very high levels. Hinagiku on the other hand only has a few years under her belt. I must get stronger, otherwise one day I might lose the qualification to stand by his side. What's more, if we are going to. What she is going to say we would never know, but she got pretty flushed, that's for sure, and she seemed so cute. A gigantic bolt of lightning flashed past her side and pulverized a big stone spider, to the surprise of Kaiko-sama, who was in her romantic dream just now. What are you doing, Hinagiku? Now is not the time to be s.p.a. Sing out, shouted Mikoto with some mocking tone as she put down her arm flickering with electricity. What a rare sight to see Kaiko-sama in a daze. Blushing again, she put on a serious face and faced the oncoming stone spiders with proper attitude. Floating in mid-air, Akaro's red eyes had light circle in them like a crosshair of a sniper rifle. Her eyes scanned the mob to lock on and fire salvos after salvo of missiles. With just a thought, the missiles would bring blazing glory upon the stone spiders that had the unfortunate luck to be met with them. Every wave of artillery strike would result in the death of the stone spiders by the dozens. Suffice to say, her attacks are as precise as they are savage. If she didn't have Wu Yan and company in her consideration, and more specifically her master's safety, she might have brought out Apollon. The number of the stone spiders dwindled under their ma.s. Saker, until finally the last of them died under his blade. The whole thing took place in about 10 minutes. When they realized this fact, except for Akaros and Lyran, they were a bit surprised with themselves. The numbers were despairing even compared to the Yakai army before, and their strength were on another level altogether. This kind of mob didn't even last 10 minutes against their A.S. Salt. The battle last time took them a few hours, as evidenced by resplendent breath running out. But they somehow managed to pull through and came out on top. This time it took no longer than 10 minutes to lay waste to them. Given, of course, Akaros contributed much with her power, otherwise they wouldn't have such a smooth fight. Still didn't stop them from feeling excited though. This signified the increase in their respective strength. The last time he was at level 30, Tier 4 with mainstream armament, Kendo Master, Chaotic Return to Horizon Waltz. Now he stands at level 50, Tier 6, 2 rare armaments, same abilities in addition to Electro Master, LV4. No one could deny that he has indeed got much stronger. Hinagiku level 18, Tier 3, 1 mainstream armament from before has now evolved into a much stronger version with the same equipment, but Tier 4 in strength and kicks much more A.S. than before. Mikoto didn't increase much relative to the two, but still on high tiers the level difference gets wider, so even a level is still commendable. What these stats and the battle that just ended told the trio something. They have gotten more powerful. He guffawed, facing the sky, completely showing the elation in his heart. Mikoto and Hinagiku aren't so liberal as him, but they exchanged smile, clearly happy as well. Oh, what? Lyran has her eyes covered so she wouldn't see the bodies, and thus she could not see what they were doing as well. It's just that his sudden outburst surprised her, so she's patting her tiny chest in a diabetes-inducing way. Akaros tilted her head and a few question marks floated above her head as she watched her master go bonkers. Part 5 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.